Hello and welcome everyone. This is Art Cafe episode 137. Please welcome my next guest, Sam Yang. Sam is a Toronto-based artist and digital creator with widely successful YouTube channel Sam Does Arts. If you like anime-styled art, chances are you've already seen his work online, be it Pinterest, YouTube, and so on. In this episode, we talk about artists' choices in making a living and continue a topic of AI and its significance in present and near future. As always, I hope you'll enjoy this one. Let's go! Unless you're like specifically looking for, because there's just so many artists out there, right? Unless you're like specifically looking for someone, or like you're like I want to know more about this. They like don't like you don't really know. And then I think I saw a bunch of your stuff before, like earlier last year, and then obviously I saw your video about AI. And I was like, yeah, dude, I gotta talk with that guy. Not only just because of because of AI, but like I literally seen your work everywhere, like everywhere.
I mean, like
I go on Pinterest and it's all like all over the place.
Exactly. It kind of just gets around. Like people kind of just spread it around everywhere, and sometimes there's credit, sometimes there's no
Yeah.
credit. But it just like I even see it on like YouTube lo-fi videos and stuff. Like sometimes they use it as like a backdrop, sometimes they use it as a thumbnail. So it kind of gets around, and a lot of people like kind of find me that way. But yeah, like you said, unless you're specifically looking for it, it's so hard nowadays because there's art everywhere. Right.
Yeah.
And you see a cool piece and you're like, oh, wow, that's awesome. And then you kind of just move on to the next thing now.
When did you start making art? Like, I'm just curious. Like when you
Uh,
actually entered the digital art space.
Going into digital art, I think like I want to say maybe grade 12. Like I got my first drawing tablet in grade 12.
I don't know how old you are, so
And that's like, okay, let me think.
let's just put
That
like
would
a
have been like
pin.
18. That would have been like 18. And now I'm 24. So that's like six
Okay,
years ago when I first like got introduced to drawing digitally. But before that, it was like all traditional.
got it. So you weren't like, yeah, because I was about to say, gone are the days of Siegen forums and, like just generally art forums where you would literally know everyone. Like you would go on a forum and you would just recognize everyone by name because
Yeah.
obviously like much smaller, tighter space. But then
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
you wouldn't also know anyone else outside, like anyone who wouldn't post in forums, you just wouldn't know them like at all.
Yeah.
Maybe you would see the name in credits for a movie or a video game, stuff like that. But yeah, completely different times.
Yeah.
Now it's just like
100%.
wow, it's everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I think the barrier to entry like it's kind of like just opened up completely. Like the floodgates are opened and now anybody can just kind of share their stuff online. And it's like what you said before about how you see so much now. It's almost like counterintuitive. Like you can put your stuff out there very easily, but it
Yeah,
almost becomes harder for people to find you in this like sea of just art everywhere, you know?
yeah, yeah. So I mean, dude, we got so much to talk about. Like, what the
Oh man.
hell? um, I want to like figure out where to start, you know, because I could ask a typical question. Can you introduce yourself? But I feel like at that point, everyone have seen your work. Like if you go
Yeah.
on Pinterest, you and search like illustrate like anything illustration, is your
Yeah.
work's gonna pop up
Yeah.
for
I mean
sure.
like yeah, I guess like most people probably kind of already know like the basics. So we can jump into whatever you want to talk about, like like the pressing topics of the day.
Sure. Let's preface that though, maybe with like I'm actually curious what got you into being an artist. Or, there's
Right.
actually two levels to it. Like one, just kind of what got you to want to be an artist. Uh, because for some people, and including myself, there's like a seminal moment where it's like, oh, like something you saw, like a movie or TV show or something that like, oh, I want to kind of do that. Others just like, oh yeah, I've just always been doing, art, and then just kind of naturally progress. I'm just curious, like, what it was for you.
So for me, like I've sorry, I've got a bit of both. I've kind of like always had art as like a hobby, a thing that I like to do. And like when I was very young, like my parents saw that I like drawing, so they like put me in classes and stuff, which helped me a lot. So it's always something that I've had, but like when it came to like time to figure out a career for myself, like I wasn't really sure if that's something that I wanted to go into, right? Which like I'm sure a lot of artists can also relate to. Like it's always
Yeah.
something that you have, but then when it comes time to actually make money, you're like, I don't know if this is the right way to go. So that was kind of like my dilemma. And then like right out of high school, I actually, I think right away I decided to go into animation, and I applied to get into Sheridan Animation here in Toronto, near Toronto. And I actually got into that program, but like 2 months in, I was like, oh, I'm not sure like if the work here and the people here, I'm not sure if this is like my vibe, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
so like after that I kind of had like an existential crisis. I was like, okay, maybe art, like for the sake of art, isn't something that I want to do in the future. So then I decided, you know what, how else can I kind of leverage the skill that I have to make money? And then I went into graphic design for 4 years. Went into a graphic design program. Wanted to do like UI UX when I came out. And then funny enough, like in third year, I had a lot of time, so I was working on like art stuff on the side. I was doing a lot of fan art just for like stuff that I enjoyed, and like I found that really fun. And there was like a small following back then. Like I had like maybe 10, 13,000 followers on Instagram, and I remember doing like an internship for design that summer,
Hmm.
and I was just doing the work every single day like throughout the summer, and I was like kind of like editing the webflow on the same website, and I was like, oh, like that, am I gonna do this for an entire career? so, so then I went and I talked to the guy who was mentoring me. I was talking to him. I was like, I do this thing on the side, like, and he was like, yeah, I've seen it, like you've shown me before. And I was like, what do you think of this? Like, should I put some more effort into this, or do you think I should put more effort into like just drop this all together and just go all in on UX? And he was like, you've got something unique there. I think you should pursue that. And I was like, you know what? This is all I wanted to hear. That's all I needed to hear.
That's a good mentor.
Yeah, 100%. So I put it in, I put all the work in there, and like for like the entire fourth year of university, I was kind of just like, I just gotta pass and get this degree, and I'll put everything into what I've got going here. And that's kind of like, that was like a major turning point. But also like at that during that period, like I was looking online at like other artists, like people who inspire me, like like Ilya Kuchinov, like Ross Strauss, who were like I've been following, and Blup, obviously. And like I was looking at how they were like making money, how they were making a living, and I went to the Patreon pages, I went onto like YouTube pages and looked at like the kind of content they were making, and I was like, it's very possible to like get a following and make money and make a living and have this as your job. So I
Yeah,
decided, you know what,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, if this is a possibility, like why not give it a shot, right? Because if I don't try it, I'm just gonna probably regret it.
Yeah, I wish YouTube existed when I started doing digital art. I feel like a complete
The-
boomer.
It's a game changer, man. It's a game changer. What about
Yeah.
you? What about your story? How'd you get what was that moment for you?
Well, I always draw. Like I always just like doing art, and it usually was just like like Warhammer 40K or something. Like I would
Yeah.
play those like tabletop games with friends. I was poor as shit, so like usually I would just like I would go to friends and play with their like little figures, because I couldn't afford one. um, and we played like Warhammer role plays, all that kind of stuff, Dungeons and Dragons. Um, So I would just like draw the characters that I would play, or characters from like anime or movies that I liked.
Yeah.
Um, And then I remember, I mean, I've said this story like so many times, but like, why not say it again? Um, the first time I understood that you can make money in art was when I saw a documentary about that. It was a making of the Cathedral short directed by Tomek Baginski, and it was nominated. I think it was 2003 when it was nominated for Academy Award. So that was a big deal. Like,
Mm.
there's not that many. There wasn't that many artists from Poland. I mean, there's a lot of like great filmmakers from Poland that get Academy Awards. Like Kamiński is a good example. He was a cinematographer for Black Hawk Down. Um, but it was a big deal. Like they were like on national TV. Like you would watch,
Yeah,
like, whoa, like that's so
yeah,
cool. And then I would see like artists drawing on on tablets and working on the short like digital art, and they were in the studio. I'm like, wait, they're in the studio.
yeah.
Because, like, Eastern Europe, when I was growing up, like, my mom, bless her soul, I mean, she's still alive. I'm saying bless her soul, like, in the wrong way. Um, but she would, like, always say, like, no, like, art is for losers. Like, you're not going to
Mm,
make money. You're going to be on the streets. Like,
yeah,
like,
such a
a
common
poor,
misconception.
yeah, like very common message. And I was just like, I couldn't blame her because she didn't know. But when I saw it, I was like, okay, yeah, like there's
Yeah.
something there. Like I gotta do something about it. So it was forums. Like I literally kind of learned what to do through forums, asking
Mhm.
people around. Like there was no other way. Like there were Noman DVDs, but they were like $100 plus
Yeah.
shipping, right? And like if I made $100 in a month, that was a success. Like I was a janitor. Like what
Yeah.
the hell? So it was rough. So I was just
Yeah.
like, I would kind of scrap around and kind of try to get things together.
Yeah.
Kind of worked out, but it took a little longer. It will be a different story now, obviously.
Different
Like,
times, yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
and
I mean,
even more different like now, like
oh yeah,
today.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but it was like a two-step. Like one, just being obsessed, like just like doing art, and then
100%.
two, just like,
Yeah.
oh, like this moment where it clicked,
Yeah.
and then I went full in. Um,
Yeah, I can like really relate to that because it's like exactly the same, but like also different. It's like you always have this thing that you're like passionate about, but one day you're like, wait, I can do this for a living. And then when it
yeah.
clicks and you go into it in that direction, it kind of like everything just, falls into place.
So wait, when you decided like, okay, like I don't want to do the UX shit. I want to go into like
Yeah.
what I actually like. It's kind of funny because like you did something on the side that actually was your calling,
Yeah.
and then you did all this other bullshit that just like,
Yeah.
I mean, it probably helped you to get like a better understanding on certain things in like aspects of art, but
Maybe a little
honestly,
bit.
kind of useless.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that,
Yeah,
that was that was wild because I would be in school like aiming to get a job in UX, like aiming to work for like a UX company or whatever, or go to like a design agency, and like on the side I'd be making like fan art, making prints and stuff, and I'd be like hand printing and selling on Etsy, and that was like my side business. So that was like a crazy time.
yeah. Dude, I remember first time I've learned about Amazon, and I was like, oh, maybe I can sell my like drawings on it. I was like, just like such a dumb idea. I was like, how am I supposed to like send? Like, first of all, like, what do you even do? And then second of all, like, that was the time when Amazon like still, I think they were still only selling books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, that's a long time ago.
I mean, yeah, I'm a fucking dinosaur, so. uh, Yeah, such a different times. It's crazy how much have changed because when I started it was like 2003, 2004,
Yeah.
and that's like not really a long ago. But yeah, it feels like forever ago.
Yeah, and especially now, like things are changing even faster now. I think things just keep picking up the pace. Like looking at what's happening in the industry right now
Yeah.
with technology and everything. Technology just just it's like on a curve that just keeps going up like that.
Yeah,
So
right now it's like it's on the launch pad right
yeah,
now.
exactly. It's about to go
It's about to
like
go to
to the
space. It's
sky.
about to go
Yeah.
to moon and then pass it.
Yeah,
Um,
no. Once AI can start inventing things, it's just it's done. We're like,
yeah. I want to jump into AI topic just in a
yeah.
moment. Um, but I kind of want to follow up on what you said. So when you kind of like looked into, it's funny because like I remember actually interviewing Ross when he just started YouTube
Oh wow,
channel. Like that was, I think he had like maybe 10,000 followers when we did the first Art Cafe.
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was like, and I remember like doing a follow up with him where it was like over a million. It was like, dude, what happened?
I think I watched that one. I think I watched that one. I remember
Yeah,
watching one.
it was really funny to kind of like, well, funny and awesome at the same time to kind of see like how he kind of throw himself into it and
Yeah,
just like, through just hard work and just like, he's such a character too, you
yeah.
know? He's like
He is.
unlike anyone I know
Yeah.
in terms of
He's
like,
he's so he's got so much energy. I met him and he's so like he just brings this ball of energy into like whatever
yeah.
space that he's in. He's great.
I've seen him last time I've seen him was during NFT in LA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He was sorry, hold on. I'm still kind of recovering from being sick, so I'm like taking coughing pills all the
You're
time.
good. You're good.
Um but I remember no, I think so we were at the Huxley event from Ben Mora. Like I don't know if I mean I'm pretty sure you follow Ben as well. He did the comic book, the Huxley, and then they released like an NFT they did an NFT project out of it. Now I think they're actually making a movie, which is great. But like I remember I was invited to that, and then I go through the security, like the door opens to like this outdoor patio, and it's like literally everyone from the industry I know, like all of the friends. I'm like, bro, like what the hell? And Ross was there. We like hugged. And he was like, dude, you're like a teddy bear. I was like, bro, like I'm not that fat, okay? um, yeah, but he's like a super soulful, like super, energetic guy. Um, but I mean, that's such a tangent. What I was trying to say is like, okay, so when you kind of like looked into, you know, your like I guess your inspirations, like Ross and Ramon and like all the other guys, it was your like first kind of hunch, kind of knee jerk reaction to like, oh, I can probably make a YouTube channel or Patreon and kind of go that route, or were you thinking about illustration in more like a wholesome or like more, let's say, traditional artist way, where it's like, oh, like I'm gonna work for Disney or something?
I used to that's a funny story because I used to want to do that like really really bad. Like when I first applied for animation all throughout grade 12, like I was like I want to work for Disney. I want to go to DreamWorks or whatever. I want to be at one of those big animation studios and I want to make movies.
Hmm.
And then like that kind of just after being in school and realizing that this like workflow, this kind of environment's just not really my vibe. I was just like, okay, maybe that's not the dream, but like respect to everyone who does get to that point. It's not easy at all. But yeah, I think I kind of dropped that. And when I was like looking at Ross and everyone else who inspires me, I was just thinking of like ways that people can work for themselves, but
Mm,
also make a living. And that was kind of like the main goal, like to just be able to work for yourself and do what you want. And I think I didn't think too much about um, YouTube because YouTube is like it's crazy how big it's grown, but it was like a side thing for me. It was like a
right.
thing that I just started a channel because someone was like, "Can you put like process videos up?" And I tried to put it up on Instagram, and the quality on Instagram is shit. So I was like, okay, like, this is BS. Like I don't want to put like a horizontal video on your
Yeah.
vertical Instagram feed, right? So I was like, you know what? Where else can I do this? I guess YouTube. So I like put up some process videos first, and then like that side thing just kind of evolved on its own. But yeah, like at first I was kind of just thinking of doing illustrations. I was just like, I'll just do what I like, you know, I'll just draw whatever I like.
Mm.
I'll try to because back then like I was kind of stuck in a mindset for a long time, because I've always been drawing and I've always been kind of like, you know, as since you've had so much time with a certain medium, you're always kind of like a step above most people in your age range, right? So
Right.
like all throughout middle school, all throughout high school, I was like, oh, it's fine. I don't need to like put in hundreds of hours to grind, to practice, to like try to get better and learn new things. I was just kind of like drawing whatever. And like my skill was not improving. It was not going anywhere, right? And
Right.
then as soon as like I discover like Ross, like you know all these people I look up to, like I was looking at Ramon's work, I was like, how the fuck do you make this so simple but so effective at the same time? So I'm like I just like I was like I just dropped all that. I was like, man, I literally don't know anything. I don't know anything. So I started studying more, started putting more work into it. I was like, um, I just told myself like you put the work into this, you improve. One day you can get there too, and you can do what they're doing. Like you know, have an illustration page on Instagram and have a Patreon, and where you can tell people about your experience, share your experiences with people. You know, and potentially like a YouTube channel. But that was like way down the line. I wasn't even thinking
Mm.
of that.
Yeah, it's interesting because YouTube, like, God, I remember when YouTube came out and everyone was doing like machinimas from like video games, you know, just like mashing
Yeah,
shit together. It was just like a
yeah,
wild west, and it was like 240p too. It was like all kind of
yeah.
shitty qual. Like up until God, I can't remember which year was that, but it was kind of late when they introduced like HD, like 720p. Like you would watch movies in like 4K, I think by that time,
Yeah.
before they introduced like 720p on YouTube. So it was always like, oh, it's just like this platform for like wild people doing wild stuff, you know? You could
Yeah,
find everything.
yeah, exactly.
It's just grown
But
tremendously.
now it's become like so mainstream. Now when you talk to
Yeah.
when you talk to like kids, like it's like one of the staples of their lives, like having YouTube there.
Yeah,
It's
people
like
have like full careers just from YouTube and
yeah,
TikTok and Instagram, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
yeah, it's interesting because like to me it was like when I started, I almost kind of molded myself into working for clients, you know, like kind of chasing
right,
that dream from uh like oh I just want to work in art to like oh I want to work in video games. Oh, I want to work for a better video game studio. Like I want to work
right,
for like, you know, this and that. And then eventually I got an offer at Naughty Dog and then, you know, worked on The Last of Us there,
right,
and it kind of progressed like okay what's the next step, oh maybe I should, you know, figure out how to work in the movies, you know, because the movies were big. I remember meeting a bunch of guys from you know, Santa Monica studio, and those were the people like when I started at Naughty Dog, they were actually, I think on their last year, some of those guys on their last year at Sony Santa Monica starting Marvel, like starting at Marvel VizDev. So like Andy Park and, you know, all those guys from like uh you know, Santa Monica studio would like eventually start moving towards like and working with Marvel,
mhm,
the VizDev. And then like well, Iron Man came out already, but they were like literally starting the Viz Dev
right,
at Marvel, and now it's such a huge thing, right? Like
yeah,
they've done so many movies, and there's so many awesome artists that like either or like still work there, or you know worked in passing or something. Um, but it was always sort of like kind of like what is the next step in the like
right,
working with clients, and it was just I think more recently where I was like I kind of like I've done enough where I felt like my hunger for oh I want to be in the movie, like in the movie in the credits, or like I want to recognize my designs in the movies, it's already passed. It's like once you do
right,
one or two like a really, you know, high level productions, everything else is the same. It's
yeah,
literally like the script can be amazing. People you work with, you care more about people you work with, you know. But then everything's just like, oh fuck, I've done it already. Like, so what you said is like, yeah, when you were like explained the kind of grind of like reworking UI like for websites and whatever, I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I can totally fucking see that.
Yeah,
It's just like
that's crazy that you get that in working in the industry too. Because I know like literally nothing about working in the
some people
industry. Like,
don't. Some people like they would just sit down and work on the
yeah,
exactly same projects over and over, and they love it. Like
right.
I think it's a matter of like a character.
Yeah, I think people are just probably wired differently. Like I can
Yeah,
never see myself doing something like that, like ever. I think it would burn me out so quickly. And like it's interesting to get like your perspective on like the industry and what it's like to work there. I mean, like, what do you think you're more passionate about now, like in your
making my
current
own
state?
shit,
Yeah.
like legit. Yeah,
Making your own stuff, right?
I mean, um, last 5 years I've been trying with some success, and like some projects I started were more successful than others. The one that I feel like is the most successful right now is Shibuya XYZ. Obviously, that's the startup we've started last year with Emily, and we just finished the chapter 3 this month, and for White Rabbit. So I'm basically doing what I've like set myself to do
Mm,
eventually, which is directing, and kind of creating my own IP and also directing
yeah,
it, which is
that's awesome.
like the most rewarding thing, because like I would no matter what, like whether it's a client work or my own work, it's 3 a.m. and I'm like I cannot go to bed. It's too early. Like I haven't finished like this one thing that I need to finish for this. It's not finished, therefore I cannot sleep. Like that's sort of like the approach that I have, and it's much better feeling if you do it for your own projects versus if you like
Yes.
have to do it for clients,
Yeah.
because you're like either you take too much work or you want to just like, or even if you don't take too much work, you just work on one project, and then you're still kind of, I don't know, there's something maybe wrong in my head, but I look at what I do and then it's just never enough. Like, let me just fix this, and I'm already kind of past the time where I'm supposed to like, okay, no, it's wrap it up, get some sleep.
Yeah.
um so doing the work for myself is kind of like where I get the most fun.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is that because I didn't like kind of start with YouTube or Patreon or any of those places, like social media didn't even exist back then either. The mindset and sort of like you kind of mold yourself into the environment you're in. Usually that's how it works. Like you're gonna spend a few years with certain people, you're gonna act like them. Like that's why
Right.
like when people say, there's so many like those motivational speakers that say like, yeah, like surround yourself by like 5 people that
Yep.
are going to like elevate you. It's so true though, because like,
Yep.
I mean, you can see it when you work in the industry. uh you do mold yourself into that, like thinking like, or if you go to art schools. Like
Yeah.
I've spoke with so many people that went to like art center, and it was notorious for like work, like you had to like grind hard to even just get anywhere, right?
Right.
That
Right.
was sort of like this kind of ongoing thing, and a lot of art center artists would just do that. Like they would just kind of mold themselves into that thinking,
Yeah.
and then it kind of progresses later down their careers, like when you work for studios and there are projects on which you have to work long hours because they're so demanding, and others aren't. So it's just, yeah, it's a little bit of like a wild west, but um, it is different mindset for sure. And I think if YouTube existed, or like any other, because when YouTube started to develop, to me it was like, oh, this seems to be like like additional resource for artists, or creators, generally speaking, to progress and
Mhm.
maybe not work for clients, maybe do something that they like more.
Right.
And lo and behold, there's just so many artists who just do that. They just
Exactly.
fit better to that mold. I just
Exactly.
kind of never could muster myself like, oh, let me make a video tutorial or like a video about something, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
just the idea of doing that is just like I would have to rewire myself completely. Like
Yeah.
podcasting seemed to me a little more natural because also it's just not only just a conversation, but also just getting to know people. And like
Exactly.
as digital artists, we just sit in front of computers. Like unless you
Exactly.
like discipline yourself not to,
Yeah.
you're like complete introvert.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so interesting that you talk about like being wired differently based on the environment you grow up in because like it makes total sense. Like I cannot I can't envision myself like now, especially after having had a taste of what it's like to work for myself. I
Right.
it might also just be a problem with me. Like I just have problem with like someone telling me what to do all the time. But it's like now that I've had a taste of like what it's like to work for myself, to set my own schedule, set my own hours, be my own boss and like hold myself accountable. Now it's like, hey, I can go and draw something up until like 2:30 a.m. And then after I'm done, it's like I did this for myself. I'll feel good about it. Right? This is something that I put passion in. This is something that it meant enough to me that I wanted to stay up for it. So and now that I think of like doing something like that before someone else, like it doesn't matter how passionate you are about that project or that thing, like it just does not compare to a thing that you kind of create, something that came out of your passion.
It can, though. Sometimes it can because it's like if you, I mean, well, it's a little different once you start making larger projects that
Mhm.
then you work with more people that help you to create your vision, right? But like the first time you hear like, oh, you're gonna like, let's say, I know, what's your favorite French? I'll give you an example. I grew up on like sci-fi movies and anime and whatnot,
Mhm.
right? So the first time like when when Scott Free reached out, Alkin and Scott Free reached out like, oh, Ridley Scott wants to work with you on like posters for the Blade Runner.
That's
I
crazy.
was freaking out, dude. Like I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because like it's something you love and now you can contribute to it, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like I guess so. Like that makes sense. Like it's something that you're super passionate about. It's
Yeah.
like a
Or there's
passion of
certain like let's
yours.
say there's a certain movie, let's say
Yeah, yeah.
Star Wars. I mean, it kind of lost its glare, but
With the yeah.
let's say you're like a huge fan of Star Wars, and once you
Mhm.
get to work on a big movie, especially the moment you get to be invited to be on the set to see how the sauce is made, it's really incredible experience. You know,
Mhm.
I would say it's just everyone should have like every artist should have that experience just to see like
Mhm.
how many people are involved. It makes you realize that movie making is really hard. And then when
Right.
the movie is really great and you watch it and like your design specifically there and it's pivotal, that's like what the hell? Like that's such a good feeling. I remember watching X-Men Days of Future Past, for instance, and it starts with
Yeah.
the Sentinels, like from the future, fighting the X-Men,
Yeah.
and I designed those. And like when you sit down in a movie theater and
Right.
the movie opens, it's like I fucking drew
And
that.
you're like, those are mine. Those are
Yeah,
mine.
like when you watch this, it's just like that feeling is great.
Yeah.
But then you also realize when you watch credits that you're just one name out of a
Yeah.
thousand of people that worked on this, and then
That's
you're like,
true.
fuck. So it's it's a knife's edge.
It's got its
There's good
pros and
bad.
cons,
Yeah, exactly,
right? It's got its pros and
exactly.
cons. I think, like, yeah, like getting to work on something that you're passionate about like that. I can see how that could be like incredibly fulfilling. But yeah, like what you said about the end credits thing, like I think that's kind of like almost how I was feeling in animation school. I was
Yeah,
like when I get out, I don't do I want to be like that name on the credit or like do I want to be my own thing?
the thing about credits also that's interesting is that the first time you see yourself in the credits, you're like,
Yeah.
yes, like you feel so happy. I guess it's like it's somewhere down the road. A lot of people, I'm pretty sure a lot of people think that way. It's just like, oh, like everyone else who's watching the movie can see me on the credits, right?
Yeah.
Literally, no one watches credits, by the way. um, but that fades away quickly. Once you see yourself like once or
Hmm.
twice, you're just like, it's whatever. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
matter
it's,
anymore.
you get used to it. You get jaded.
Yeah, it definitely. It does feel like an achievement because it's not easy to even get to work in the movie industry.
Oh yeah,
Like it's
100%.
super cutthroat and it's more about who you know and less about
Yeah,
how good you are.
right.
And I totally understand that. Like being on the on the other end of the production, like directing and trying to find people, immediately knowing who I work with
Right.
is more valuable than how good you are. It's just immediate
Right.
because I'm slowly realizing that for the bigger the production is, there's key people that you need to have that are incredibly talented, but it's all in the hands of director and writers, obviously, and
Right.
but sometimes directors write as well. If the writing and directing is not good, then it doesn't matter if you have like the best illustrators, if you
Right.
have like the best cinematographers and wardrobe and all that stuff. Like it just doesn't matter because it's just not gonna be good, you
Yeah.
know. So I can totally understand like why some production designers and directors just go back to the same artist that they worked with before. It's
Yeah.
because they helped them to get where they need to get on time and reliably.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I mean that makes
there's
sense. Like I see some there are certain directors who are like really prolific, like Christopher Nolan, like even James Cameron with the new Avatar movie. Like they keep working with the same actors in so many of their movies, right?
yeah,
Like even they just bring them back for different roles, and it's like you can kind of see that happening on the screen. It's like there's a level of familiarity, like there's a level of trust, and yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense.
and they are
But
demanding. I know those two
yeah,
specifically, they are really demanding. Like
yeah.
people, some of my friends from the film industry that worked for both, they always say the same thing. It's like they have incredible like fifth or sixth sense for bullshit. So
Mm,
don't try to bullshit those people. They just see
yeah.
it through. But they also is just like if you work like most of the people that work for movies that those guys are making, like James Cameron and Christopher Nolan, you work like you're expect like you're not asked, but you're almost expected to like work really hard
Yep.
because they're very demanding and very they particularly want to have certain things done the way they like it, you know, and that takes incredible effort from the entire production to get there because it's just not easy. um, but you know, I know some people that love working that way. I know a lot of people that hate working that way too,
Mm,
but then the movie comes out, it's like, yeah, I was worth it, you know.
right.
But again, that kind of fades away quickly. Like you do one or two movies and you're like, oh fuck, like
Gotta do this shit again.
yeah, you gotta do this shit again. It's like the first 2 weeks is amazing. Like, oh my god, I cannot believe I work with James Cameron or something.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my god.
I gotta work with them again.
No, it's just like I have to do this now for like few months, sometimes years. Like some a lot of like Avatar 2 came out recently.
Yeah, yeah.
I almost got to work on it, but it just didn't. I just didn't end up being on the show
Mm,
for whatever like there's many reasons, but uh, I got to know production designer Ben Proctor and Dylan Cole. Great guys. I met with them like ate dinner with them or lunch. Sorry. Um, Great guys. I think I was no, I know I was working on something else back then. I was the Captain. I think it was the Captain America, and then Ghost in the Shell. So like literally just couldn't even get there. Plus, they had like the superstars of like movie industry. So
yeah.
it was just like oh, do I even fit into that equation, right? Uh, but dude, that was like 2014, maybe 15. That movie, like the
Yeah.
production of that was like it was a long production.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a long
That's
time.
unheard of, by the way. Like, but also I think they were working like what, like 3 or 4 movies all at once.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I've heard
Yeah,
too.
but
I mean, that's
yeah,
a crazy long time to be working on the same project.
some projects take years.
Wow.
like literally years. Um, Others takes just weeks. It's really weird
Yeah.
in movies.
What
You
if you
don't know
get
what to
like,
expect.
what if you're on like a project that's gonna take years and you get burnt out after like the first few months? Like, what do you do then? You just tough it out?
Just stuff it out. Like, I
Oh
mean, what
man.
else you want to do? I mean, you can always quit, but the problem is like once you quit like in the middle of the project because you burned out, you can be guaranteed that like this production designer or director will never work with you again.
Yeah, you're burning that bridge. Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely burning that bridge because like they want to have you and they rely on you. They don't
Hmm.
want to you don't want to spend time because film production is so tight already. Like everything is like pre-planned months ahead. And so like if something happens, it takes so much effort to replace people and then
Hmm.
get them to know what the project is, read the
Right,
script,
right, right.
kind of understand the language you already established
Yeah.
visually.
You're just
It's a
giving them so much
nightmare,
trouble.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Switching crew during production is a fucking nightmare.
Yeah. Jesus.
So you're definitely burning that bridge if you quit.
Yeah, that's like so different because for me, like if I'm making YouTube videos and I'm like, fuck, I'm burnt out, like I can take a week off.
Yeah,
Like I can just
you
be like,
cannot do that I mean,
yeah,
you can
that's
take time
crazy.
off, that's fine. But yeah, if you just quit, and it's such a small industry too, word goes
Right,
around. Like,
right. Like
you
everyone
know,
knows everyone.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And if you actually like work really well with someone, like let's say you work with a production designer and they really like you, and you do a killer movie, but you also have like art directors on the show, and you have like directors, and sometimes you work with cinematographers too,
Right.
and they get to know like it, and if you're good and they like you, they will either hire you for their other because crews assemble for a film and then they disassemble and work on something like people work on something else. It's not always the same crew working on stuff. That art director that really liked you, production designers often ask like, hey, I need someone like, do you know any like illustrators that can do this or that? They're
Mm,
like, yeah, I worked with this guy on the previous show. Let's get him. So once you work on like two or three movies, like, and if you're good, you're gonna get phone calls all the time because
right.
like your crew of like your net of people who you worked with before gets bigger and bigger.
Right.
Uh, and but yeah,
Just
again, like
connections, right?
yeah, it's all
Connections
about
and networking
connections.
with people. That's very similar to the like what I had to learn before about graphic design and UX,
Yeah,
where it's like all about like yeah, your portfolio kind of matters. You can't be shit, but also at the same time, if you have the right connections that are in the right places, you can get into those places better than people who might have more skill than you, which is
yeah.
really interesting how that works.
Ironically, that might not matter in coming years
Yeah.
with how the things are going. um,
Oh man.
yeah, I think it's a good segue, huh?
Yeah,
To
that's
get
a good one.
into
Let's take that.
yeah, to get into AI. It's funny how it snuck up on everyone so quickly.
I know. Yeah. I mean, like people were saying for the longest time that art is going to be the last thing to be
Oh, I
automated,
said it like 2 years ago. It's
right?
like there's
Yeah.
no way.
Like I was thinking that too because everyone was saying it. I was like, okay, so well, this is human creativity. There's no way you're going to replace that, right? Like machines are
Yeah.
cold and unthinking and they only use logic and mathematics. There's no way. There's no way a machine's going to make a painting, but look at it now.
Now, yeah, now logic and mathematics. We are more creative than you.
Yep.
Well, I wish I was smarter because the writing on the wall was years ago, honestly. And
Yeah.
even though it's a different technology, like content aware filters in Photoshop should have been the
Right.
the writing on the wall, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, it
Yeah.
magically extends and
And
fixes
and I mean
images.
like this whole thing, like the just how big it's gotten now, it's only came about in like this past summer. Like that's how recent it was. You know,
Hmm.
like just as this the launching of this whole thing into mainstream media and being like in front of people's attention, like it's so recent. Before that, I mean, like even just a year from now, like a year before past January, what that 2022, January 2022.
Yeah.
Like we had no idea. We were just like, oh, we're all gonna be drawing. We're all gonna be drawing for another 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Nothing's gonna change.
I knew before, but I was not expecting that it's going to be that fast.
Yeah.
When was the first time like you actually saw something that AI can do with art, and you were like, "Holy shit, this is crazy," and I hope it doesn't come to fruition anytime soon.
I think probably sometime in the summer. I remember like
Okay.
seeing like Mid-Journey stuff, like some of the crazy environments that it was doing, and I was like, I don't really do as many environment pieces. I'm not like super comfortable with that. So I was looking at it, I was like, well, this is crazy. This is sick. How's it doing this?
I remember seeing the first like the white papers for OpenAI's DALI back in
Yeah,
2021. So a year before Midjourney was released.
right.
I think I can't remember exactly on in what year OpenAI has started, um, but it's a pretty new company. I mean, obviously it was started by Sam Altman and Elon Musk, and Elon actually left because he didn't like the idea of OpenAI being closed, meaning like being a private company with
Mm,
like a private product. He wanted to be an open source, more like what Stable Diffusion is, like Stability AI
mm,
is open source technically, kind of business model versus it's a black box, you don't know what's going on,
mm.
which is OpenAI. Um, I can't remember what I was working on. I think I was working with John Gata because he's like the guy who sends me like the newest and latest. Sometimes he will send me a link like, "What the hell you just sent me?" You know, like what the hell is that? Like the end of the world now? Like just like the technological advancements that like he would and I remember I think it was I got that from him like the Open AI DALI, and that was 2000 maybe 2020. Definitely 21, maybe 2020. I think it was 21, the white paper. And I was like, this is a game changer for art. Like, this is probably going to end art. Like, I had those kind of like mixed feelings that everyone has right now back then.
Right.
But I was like, there's no way this is gonna be like public anytime. Like, we have probably like 5 or 10 years before this even starts to trickle in.
Yeah.
And then Mid-Journey, and then
Look
DALI
how
comes out,
fast.
like all of it
Yeah.
in like a month.
I know, just like that. I
Yeah,
mean, it's come about so fast, and it's
yeah,
like it's moving even faster. Like, but I will say though, like from when you contacted me, which was like a few months ago, to now, like a lot of things have been happening, and I think
yeah.
in the next few months that are coming up, a lot of things are gonna also take place that are gonna kind of determine the future of this space.
I did one prediction when I was doing podcast with Ash,
Oh yeah.
and I said, or maybe I even said it when I was talking to James, because when I really not James, Steven, um, because there's another Zapata. I think James Zapata. Yeah, Steven Zapata. So many artists. um, I said I'm super like just like proud of myself. Oh, I can see the future. I said 2023
Yeah.
there's gonna be shit ton of lawsuits for
Ah,
like
there you
about
go.
AI. Like I just seen the writing on that specifically. I was just like super convinced.
Yeah, yeah.
And literally January, I was January 2nd, the class
Yeah.
action lawsuit
Exactly.
news
There you
comes
go,
out.
man. You should make more of these predictions in our favor. Will these predictions into existence, please?
Oh, I made so many predictions that were wrong. I don't think you want to listen to me. Um, no, but like honestly, it was really interesting. I want to see, I want to kind of hear how your perspective on this developed, and we'll get into like all the good and all the bad stuff.
Yeah.
But when like Mid Journey first came out, like what was your like initial reaction to it?
I thought it was like a gimmick. Like I think me and many other artists like they see this thing and it's like it produces an almost abstract looking kind of scene that's like it doesn't really represent too much. Like you can kind of see hints
That's
of
interesting.
representation in there, and you're like, oh, this is cool. This is sick. You know, this is like a little gimmick that people can do to make like cool pieces. And then like next thing you know, it just gets more and more representational, gets better and better, and it starts to become like, oh wait, like they're trying to replace artists with this kind of technology.
I had like completely different reaction to this.
Yeah.
And it flipped from, it's almost like, again, like being on the edge of like, there's just so many positive things about it and so many negatives, right?
Yeah.
My initial reaction was like, oh, this is the end of concept art and illustration. Like a year from now, no concept artists or illustrators. Like that was my first reaction.
Mm.
And I remember like, because I've done like a ton of Midjourney stuff, like a ton. Like I just never released it. To me, like releasing that stuff, like I've released like one or two images that I made in Midjourney and then like repainted
Mm.
them. I think only one image. I used one image from Midjourney in my story where I kind of I don't even tweak anything. It was just kind of cool looking, but again, it was like more abstract. But to me, it was just like I like went full deep dive into like quote unquote prompt engineering into Midjourney, trying to like, figure out like how this thing reacts, and then like it's almost felt like I was art directing this ambiguous
Mm.
mathematical being to create stuff that I wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
The initial kind of kick out of it, I think everyone gets is just like, oh my god, right? Like
Yeah.
what is
You're like,
happening?
what
Like
the
I
fuck?
can
How is
make
this possible?
magic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then did you have this thing where like let's say you would make something in AI, and I don't know how deep you went into like that early on, but you would make something and you would feel like, yeah, like I made it, like,
I actually, fun fact, I have yet to touch anything. Like I
oh,
have yet
okay,
to,
interesting.
yeah. I'm
Okay.
like completely, like I probably will in the future, and it just like I want to see how everything goes, how everything pans out. But um, I feel like that would be a good segue, like into like the pros and cons and the heaps of both that we can talk about.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
like I think it's like what you were saying, like it's like you're the director of this thing that can just produce art for you. It's like you become like a level above the worker. And I think like in that sense, like well, yeah, like there's bad with it right now, but in that sense, like if you have this tool at your disposal and you have like like a storybook or like a thing that you have in your mind, but it takes way too many, man hours to be able to finish, to be able to even conceptualize or envision. Like now you have this tool to be able to do it,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's like extremely powerful. That because that's something that hits pretty close, like home to me because I've always wanted to like make like books, kind of like what Ross did with Nima. Kind of like have your own world, have your own
Yeah.
story, have your own like be able to conceptualize all these things and just have all that done. But it's like I always think about it like I will never have time to do this. I will never have time to do this with all
It's
the other
a
commitments, right?
beast. Yeah. It's a
It's a
beast.
I don't know how he did it. To this day I don't know how he did it, but like I just keep thinking like if I were to jump into something like that and try to complete it, I would have to drop everything else in my life. And in that sense, like I think having the technology that could conceptualize things for you, you could input images and build these models. I think having that could be like an absolute game changer.
I did bunch of like back in the days of like early Midjourney. I found the way to kind of prompt the engine because I don't know what I think. I don't exactly know what Midjourney is. If it's like, I think it's based on stable diffusion too, but I'm not sure. I think it's a black box too. Like it's
Mm.
not really written anywhere what it is. I can only assume, and I haven't done enough research to actually know. But it seems to me it's the same thing. Um, I did this whole series of like feudal Japan, like kind of like
Ooh.
samurai, like And obviously it was kind of like all kind of janky and not real. Like you couldn't
Yeah.
tell what the character, if it's a character or not. It was just like all kind of very abstract. But the film quality in it was incredible, incredible. And I did like 1,000 of them. And my immediate thought was like, oh, if I actually didn't have to work and like had all the other projects that I really care about,
Yeah.
I would totally do a book. Just
Exactly.
like go image by image, spend like a few months to overpaint them completely,
Exactly.
which you don't have to do anymore almost. At this point, you can probably make, I could probably remake those if I spend enough time, remake those to make those characters look like a real thing and then the environments look like a real thing too.
Which is crazy how fast,
It's
like
very
just
crazy.
from then
Yeah.
till now, like it's progressed so much.
Um, yeah, I mean, look, even with Ross, like when you mentioned Ross and Nima book, like I know he spent like a shit ton of time to make that
I know,
book.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And for an average artist, it's impossible. Well, it is possible to make the book. It's just if you don't have a massive following, it's just not going to sell.
Exactly.
So you're putting like months and months, and even sometimes years of time for something that might make you less than you would make if you were just flipping burgers in McDonald's, you know,
Exactly.
unless you have like a massive following. Um, and building following is such a, oh my God, that's a work. That's work.
Yep.
Building following, it's work.
It's tough, man.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're just posting pictures on Instagram. I'm like, hey, asshole, you know, like you actually have to make those pictures too. You know, it takes time and effort.
This shit takes time, man.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, I
Yeah, I mean, like it speeds up the process of like tackling a big project, and it also allows you to do it. Like if you were to do it at that speed with human resources, you would be out millions of dollars, right?
yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
like it having a tool like that allows you to do it with basically just a computer in your basement. You can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like that's one of the biggest pros that I see that comes with this technology, and like I think it could absolutely change the way we create things. And I'm personally like I'm excited for that future. To be honest with you, like it'll amplify all of our outputs by so much, like all of us. And in doing so, like the good stories will actually be able to have a chance to flourish in this world.
Yeah.
So that's like the biggest pro in my book.
So you know how those systems works, but you never actually like prompted anything, right?
No, I never prompted anything.
I think you should try. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you what you need to do, but and it just for I think it kind of expands your knowledge because I'll tell you one thing that happened immediately
Mm,
that summer and even now because I went on like let's say AI hiatus. Like after that, I just have that epiphany, and I was like,
right.
okay, I can move on. And then recently, when it broke the news again, and everyone's talking about it, I kind of like started to invest myself into playing with those tools. The initial reaction after I did all of those thousands of images, like last summer, was like, if I can do like 500 images a day, that's just that's just not fun.
Yeah.
There's no sense of achievement to begin with. And
Right.
also it just felt like if I can do it, then everyone can do it, and therefore there's just nothing original there.
Mm-hmm.
Like it looks incredible, but then it and I
That's a
kind of
good point.
bullshitted myself into it because then if you would go, I mean I haven't checked because with Midjourney it's like basically a Discord bot. Like you can either go on like the open Discord like public channels where all 99% of art like Discord the Midjourney art is created. But if you pay for it, actually, you can use a bot and do it all privately, right? But I would say 90, at least back then, 90% of like Mid-Journey art would be just done through Discord, like the public. And it was just like, bro, like people have no taste, like at all. Like you have this incredible tool to make incredible things and you create shit. Like that was my kind of reaction, right?
Yeah.
I know it kind of sounds elitist, but that's true. Like, not everyone understands art. And that was my
100%.
first kind of like understanding of it. It's like, okay, if you don't understand color, composition, all of those things, at least back then, and I know it's going to progress to a point where it doesn't matter eventually,
Hmm. Yeah.
because the system's going to learn to produce things that are, generally speaking, in the realm that universally people agree that that's a good lighting, good composition, yada yada. You can train that. But back then it wasn't the case, and it was just immediately apparent who's a good artist and who isn't using that
Hmm.
tool, or
Right.
who has a good eye. Because you don't necessarily need to be a good artist to have a good eye. It's like with
Hmm.
directing movies. Like, there are movie directors that are obsessed about visuals, and
Hmm.
they would like want to make sure that everything they touch has visuals in it, right?
Right. Right.
There
Right.
are movie directors that don't even care how things visually look, but they have a sense. Like, you know what? I feel like the colors should be different, or like this should be different, right? And they have a sense to hire the right people to make those movies look great and
Hmm.
feel great. Like, Rousseau brothers are a good example of that. They are not artists at all. I worked with them. They just, their approach is more, they care about story in the first place. The story is the most important thing. But they have this kind of magical sense of hiring the right cinematographers, art directors, production designers that have like a good sense of like what things should look like. And
Hmm.
those people lift it to the place where they feel happy about the project.
Right.
That's my personal experience. Obviously, I don't know them that well to kind of speak on their behalf, but it feels the same to me with AI, generally speaking. You know,
Hmm.
it's like you probably met people who are not artists but have crazy ideas. You're like, oh, I wish you would paint, like you would make a movie or painted it like that, like as you expressed it, right? So I think that is a great opening for people like that. I'm
Yeah.
I'm honestly least worried about. Well, it's on levels though. Like, when I say least worried about an average AI art, like art consumer, because at the end of the day, there's nothing unique about it. It's all kind of based on what already existed, and there's completely lack of uniqueness to it.
Right.
Yes,
That's true.
it creates incredible images, but if you look at it, they kind of like it kind of reminds me of ArtStation, where a known artist would post something incredible, and
Yeah.
then a month later, it's like everyone's copying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Yeah. No, that's
accelerated,
true.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just accelerated.
Yeah. I like on the topic of like originality and everything too. Like I think like we will get to a point where eventually, well, like depending on how all the lawsuits and stuff go, but like that might push the technology back in terms of its timeline. But if we're progressing at like that, just that upward rocketing pace, like we're gonna get to a point where you can have no sense of what's good in art and what's not, what's a good composition, what's good lighting, and the AI will take care of all of that for you. And I think when you get to that point, like anybody can kind of put their stuff out there using these AI systems. Then it's kind of like again, it's like social media almost, but like you ramp it up to like a whole different level where the saturation level of the things that are you're able to see is just insane. It'll become so there's so much, and everybody can make 500 images a day. So then the amount of
Or
images
more.
that you're able to get exactly or more, and they're all going to be, well, if the technology progresses in the right way, they're all going to be top notch, right? Great lighting, great composition, great storytelling. Everything's going to be top notch. Everyone's making this 500 of these a day. But now you have an insane saturation of content, and it's like even if you do have an original idea, that's a gem, that's just an absolute gem, and you put it out there, well, now you're competing with everybody else who's putting out two, three different stories every single day. And it's like I think that side of this future is also kind of gloomy, because it's like you're what are you doing this for, right? Like where's you have that spark that creates this story, but that story gets buried by billions of others.
Okay, so let's tackle it from that perspective then. Like based on there's just so many things to talk about. Holy shit. But based on your sort of experience of how you see the things are going and how much you know about AI, uh, all those engines, how they produce, what people actually do with those. Because I've seen a lot of like I've seen few cases of like proper use, and it's incredible. And there's some artists that I admire and respect that use stable diffusion. I use stable diffusion too, but the way they produce the work is just incredible. Like, oh, it's a incredibly accelerating tool for you to
Mm.
create even more incredible things, you know? And there are like examples like what was I can't remember the name of the artist, but I've heard about it and I actually have seen this. This girl on Twitch was painting a character. Someone screenshotted work in
Oh yeah,
progress,
I remember that. Yeah. Someone screenshot it and then completed it.
finished, and
Yeah.
then went on Twitter calling her out like, "Hey, give me credit for my work and stop copying me." It's like, bro, what the
That
fuck?
sounds like a troll. That I don't. They
It
can't.
feels like a troll,
They
yeah.
can't possibly be serious about that.
Um, and then like I kind of give it a parallel. I'm actually really happy that the lawsuits are coming in, and I want to see more of them.
Mm.
Even though I feel like the lawsuits are, at the end of the day, they're not gonna change much in terms of like the core of what this thing does. I feel
Yeah.
like when people say the Pandora box was already open and you cannot close it, that's true. The
Yeah.
question is how much bad things will come out of that Pandora box versus how
Exactly.
many
Yeah.
good things, right?
Exactly.
And the lawsuits, I'm happy to see that the lawsuits are there because they create precedent and then they shape those tools to go in the right, and they shape public opinion, and it also makes so that, and everyone who's like on, you know, it's kind of wild to me that it became artists versus AI artists. Like it's almost like it's like Republicans and Democrats at this point. It's just
Everything's
so weird.
politicized.
It's so politicized, and it's just like both parties should be happy that the lawsuits are happening. Clearly, one like artists are happy that the lawsuits are happening. It's like because yeah, we're gonna
Right.
win. And then the
Yeah.
AR, like I read so many comments, like because I checked some of the I try to check regularly what's the sort of like the temperature and opinion around this. And you see those videos like, oh, those stupid artists think that this is gonna change, like this AI lawsuits, they're
Yeah.
just
I
like
know.
try like that's not I don't there's just so many uninformed people. Like you want to have
Yeah.
lawsuits. If you don't have lawsuits, you have FTX. Yeah, that's what you have. As you have
Exactly.
crypto and FTX
Like.
if you don't have lawsuits, you know?
Yeah. I think people kind of us- like on both sides. Like I'm not gonna say artists are in the clear or AI artists are in the clear, but on both sides, people kind of just take up like this position in this camp, and they're like, "There's no way in hell am I hearing out the other side. This is
Right.
bullshit. Like
Yeah.
fuck what they're doing, right? And they're and the same thing like for me, I'm an artist, so I'm experiencing the other side, the AI artist saying fuck what you guys are doing, fuck your feelings, fuck your whining, we're gonna replace you, you're gonna be out of jobs. And so now I'm like, man, what the hell, like this is like just extremely unproductive. And the fact is, like, you're right, like without having these lawsuits, this your AI artist job, you're not even secure. You're going to be like thrown under the bus too. We're all going to be thrown under the bus. We're like having this lawsuit is setting precedents for the future to have this tool be used for you know more good than bad, and
Yeah.
like it benefits all of us. But because people are kind of grouped into these two camps of AI artists versus artists, or like tech bros or whatever versus artists, it's like
I
people
don't
just
know. I feel like a lot of AI art is from people who just like always wanted to do something around art, but they just never done it as an
yeah, yeah,
artist,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and like one of the talking points for AI is that they're democratizing art and bringing it to everybody. But you have to understand, you can pick up a pencil and a piece of paper and you can go on YouTube,
Yeah.
look up a video and give it a shot. You know what I mean? Like nothing's
Not
really.
anymore. You don't need to.
Yeah. No, I know. You. And that's kind of sad because the whole point of art is like it's a process of challenging yourself, of like improving yourself, of seeing just how far you can push what you're able to learn and what you're able to do, your
Hmm.
hand-eye coordination, everything, right? This is a whole process of learning. And then the moment you create something, you're like, I didn't know I could do this. Like you're filled with so much joy when you see that happening. And you look back like 2, 3 years, you're like, wow, 3 years ago I was here and now I'm here. There's so much joy and growth, not only for you as an artist, but also for you as a person, like to experience that. But
Yeah,
now you're kind of taking that away.
there's definitely that. I mean, that's a pretty human thing too, where if something doesn't take effort, it's just not gonna feel that great to achieve it,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Um, I can understand why where even if it's malicious, even if it renders itself to be malicious at the end, I understand why a I don't want to call this AI artists. I understand why people who use AI have that feeling as like, oh, I finally feel like I can do something, right? I can totally
Mm.
understand because I felt it too. Like when I used Midjourney for the first time, it's funny. I was just like when I used Mid, it's like talking about drugs. When I played with Midjourney for the first time, dude, like you prompt something in and it spits out this image that it's just so incredible and you feel like you made it, like I painted,
Mm.
like I paint, like you feel like you almost have. It's weird because I'm an artist and I know how much effort it takes, right?
Mm.
I've spent like what almost 20 years learning to get
Mm.
to a point where whatever AI art produces, I can probably do it myself if I wanted to. But it's just like it still would feel like, oh my god, like, oh, it's my image, like it, but it technically isn't. Like,
Mm.
I think the best explanation of how you should think about just prompting, because it's one thing to prompt, and then the second thing, just like, oh, you conceptualize something with prompt, and then you take it and use it for something else. If you're just prompting, it's literally like going to the library and just sequencing specific words, and those specific words sequence with the number is in the row 5 million whatever, Z, and
Mm.
then on the fifth shelf, fourth book from the right. That's where your artwork is. It's literally that. When you
Mm.
type in the prompt and you give it a seed number, because like stable diffusion, for instance, you have like a random seed, but you can also define the seed number. It's literally a point in some kind of space that has that image already sort of like has the math to make that image happen.
Mm.
So if I give you prompt and I give you a seed number and you use the same model, you're gonna get exactly the same result, like
Mm.
pixel to pixel, right? So it's
Right.
not like it's magically creating stuff. No,
Right.
it is doing a very intense math, but it's more of a indexing. That's why Copyright Office said like you cannot. Well, it's one of the reasons why Copyright Office would say you cannot, call this, you cannot copyright this, because there has to be a human intervention in this, because this is really isn't making art. It's just indexing. It's like Google
Yeah.
search for an
Yeah.
art. It's really incredible, like how it does it, like, and how it can be trained to do it even better and better and
Yeah.
better. Right? It's
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
But you can reverse engineer every single AI art can be technically reverse engineered to that index point in the it's
Mm.
called latent space. I was watching Corridor Crew. It's like big VF, like it's a
I
I
think I
think those
saw that
guys are
video.
LA based. Those are like VFX artists. They have like this funny YouTube channel where they're like,
Yeah.
oh, let's uncover the uncanny valley of some of the Star Wars movies where like the faces are like, it's kind of there, but it's like it's clearly uncanny valley. So they would like, let's recreate those with like deep fakes and see what happens, right? So
Uh,
they would do that, or they would take like old like action movies from like early 2000s where VFX were shit. It's like, okay, let's try to fix the VFX. Let's try to fix those incredibly shitty VFX
Yeah.
shots, right?
Yeah.
Um, but they've recently have been doing podcasts too, and they were talking about that specifically. And I think they had like probably the best explanation. Like one of the guys was just giving like probably the best explanation I've ever heard in terms of like what it really is. And then
Mm.
there was this another channel I found. It's called Computer File. There's like researchers from UK, like computer researchers. They just generally do research and talk about AI, but there was this one episode where they explained Stable Diffusion, which was great to watch to kind of understand exactly how this thing works. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, it's basically like indexing and denoising tool. Like that's really what it is,
Mm.
right? But it's
Right.
just such an incredibly complex math. Um,
I mean, going forward though, like, there's this like, do you think that, like, how do we even categorize art that's made by AI then? Like, how do we, like, it like draws into the definition of like, what do you define as art in the first place?
well, I think one of the things that is pretty apparent to me is that it cannot just yet, and maybe there's going to be a breakthrough technology that will allow
Right.
this, or maybe this is going to develop to a point where it has enough data points outside of even just the visualizer to then have a resemblance of something that's creative.
Mm.
Um, because I do understand some people make this point. It's like, oh yeah, but artists, take inspiration from other artists,
Like
and then mix
that
it.
one's so annoying.
It is, but
That point is so
honestly,
annoying.
honestly, if you millionfold complexity levels of pattern seeking, like if you don't think humans are made by God and you're not like, you know, you're not religious for let's say, and you don't believe that there's something like spirit and soul, and you could technically break down consciousness to the computer calculations.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if you can do that, then technically there's a certain level of computing in which things like stable diffusion can have enough data points that they can fool you to think that they are creative, right?
Right.
But then you can ask yourself this question: well, what's the difference then? If you cannot see the difference, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Does it even matter? Or maybe we're not as complex as we believe we are.
Yeah.
It's a deeply philosophical question, in my
It's
opinion.
extremely
It's
philosophical, like
extremely
just thinking
annoying.
about this.
I know why it's annoying though, because it's like you have a fat chubby kid that walks up to like Usain Bolt is like, I can be a runner too. you know it just feels that way. I get it. uh
Yeah, it's also like it also makes me think too, like a lot of people like to word it like the AI is learning just like you are.
it's not
The
learning.
AI is, yeah, exactly. A lot of people like to word it that way. They like to say the AI is taking these images and learning from what it sees, just like an artist is from a reference. And if you're gonna give that level, just that level of personification to this uh, machine, and then at what point do we say do we have like a Detroit Become Human situation where you're like, when when should we give these things rights? When should we start to regard it as conscious? Like if it's learning just like me, okay, well, what am I doing then? Am I a machine or is that thing me? Like, what's going on here?
Then you have Blade Runner.
Yeah, exactly. It's becomes so confusing, and then the yeah, there's a lot of arguments on both sides that I think are valid. Like for an artist and for the AI side, like it's valid. But there's a lot of bad that's happening
Let's
right now
break it
that
down
we have
then.
to
Like,
tackle.
if you had to give me like at least two most valid, most compelling arguments why you think it's a good thing. Like, put yourself in the
Okay,
shoe of someone
number
who's like
one, number one, we've already talked about. Okay, it's
the
giving us the
productivity.
freedom and the time, exactly, the
Yeah,
productivity to be able to make things.
I
That
100% agree.
if that was done in a let's just say purely ethical way, just everyone's compensated, everybody's happy, then that would be a utopia. That would be the best case scenario.
Hmm.
Something else is like you, I mean, they make the argument that this is this is an advancement of technology, and it's here to help us, and we shouldn't hold back the progress, which I kind of, because I'm really into tech. I'm really into like the advancement of tech. I follow like SpaceX on Twitter. I follow like what Elon does with like Tesla and all the self-driving stuff. I love this stuff. I love seeing where it progresses. I love the power that Apple is now able to pack into our computers at such a small size. This shit's amazing to me, right? So I want to see where this goes in the future. I want this tech to progress, and I can resonate with that point. That I do want to see the tech progress. I want to see it keep going. I want to see it get better and better, and then eventually, who knows where it would go, right? But that also brings me to the other side, like the artist's perspective, where we have to consider the humans that are being impacted by this, and how this has basically come onto the screen and started to trample over smaller artists and people in the industry, and it's kind of like, okay, well, at what point do we say this thing is a machine and it should not have the same copyright laws and infringement laws being applied to it as a human would be? So I don't know. I just don't know. I think like from the artist perspective, that's the point that I understand. And also like just in general, like I'm all for human creativity. Like you and I, we're artists. We make art. We create things based on our lived experiences, our memories, and everything that we've gathered over, with you obviously many more years than I have. But it's there's something very beautiful about that. And I'm not religious. I don't really believe in like the soul and everything like that. I don't believe in an afterlife or anything like that, but there's something that's so like beautiful about human consciousness and what we're able to create. I'm really into history too, so like looking at the past creations that we've made, the sculptures, the Roman cathedrals, the like I went to Europe this past summer and I saw a lot of historical like churches, and people were painting like the frescoes that you see on the ceilings, on the
It's
walls.
incredible.
You see it and you're just like, man, there's something more here than what
Yeah.
you see on the surface. And when you're just struck in awe by all of that, and today, all the amazing artists who are sharing their work online, who are reaching millions of people, it's like something about that human creativity I value dearly. And I think people who are coming onto the scene and saying that artists are going to be replaced, artists are going to be obsolete in the next few years, there's I really don't like that. I really don't like that point, because there's something beautiful about human creativity.
I honestly think that those kind of people, and also on the artist side, again, the Republicans versus Democrat, like literally just like it feels like that.
Yeah,
It's almost
exactly.
like the extremists on the both sides are the most vocal, I think.
Yeah.
So like the arguments you're bringing in, for instance, like someone's like, "Oh, art is gonna be art is gonna be replaced. Deal with it. Like suck it up."
Yeah.
I, I don't I don't see a value to listening to those kind of. They don't bring anything to the table. This is just an average human thinking. I don't think those people matter. Their opinion that like I don't think their opinion matters at all. I don't
Mm,
really care what they have to say, right?
that's fair.
And the same goes to artists who say like AI should be completely stopped and never
Yeah,
progress
that's
because I
ridiculous.
want to be in this sweet spot I'm in. I feel like
Yeah.
it's not that being an artist being in a sweet spot, because just like maybe 1% or 5% of artists are actually making like a really good living, and then the rest of
Yeah.
them are struggling.
Yeah.
Um, but still, it's the same it's the same thing to me. It's like, well, in that case, go back to drawing like with pencils. If you don't like technology progression, why you're using ZBrush? Like ZBrush didn't exist 10
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah. Don't use your
It's
3D
like
model
it's
references.
yeah, exactly.
Don't
It's
use
like
Pinterest.
it's what's the word I'm looking for? Disingenuous to
Yeah.
to 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 talk that way. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like going back to like the positives, in terms of like the technological progression, I agree with you 100%. I
Yeah.
almost feel like it will create its own industry. Like the
Mm,
industry is going to change. The big problem is just the complete lack of empathy. It's like it's the same thing. I can't remember which industry was that, But there was this famous quote that was going on Twitter, "Learn to code," like a couple of
Oh
years
yeah.
ago. Like people
Oh
were like
yeah. Ooh.
condescendingly talking to like an average, like let's say average middle-aged worker who's like spent their whole life being, craftsman of something, and then their
Right, like a
industry would be
trades
completely
worker.
wiped.
Exactly.
Like, oh, go away, oh, just fucking learn to code. It's
Learn
like
to code. Yeah,
that's
it's
not
like,
how it
come on,
works, dude.
come on.
Like, ask your grandma to like post a reel on Instagram and see what happens. It's just like it doesn't work that way. And
Yeah,
people like there's an identity to the effort and time you put into something, right?
yeah,
And people grow to like cherish it. And if someone like comes in and tries to destroy it for you, or tells you this is was completely worthless, then like your reaction is gonna be like, well, fuck you.
yeah.
It's like I spent 20 years doing that, and you're telling me like you see that happening over and over, not
Exactly,
only for artists
exactly.
but everyone. So it's like it's there's a complete lack of empathy that's just like it's just sad to see. It's
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, you fucking artist, or like, oh yeah, the
exactly.
loss is gonna kill this AI shit. It's like I don't know, man.
On both sides, like on
Yeah,
both sides. For the people who use AI, on their side, it's like, oh, well, you guys are just whiny, you're just crying about it, suck it up and just deal with it. So you don't understand, like, this has been people's livelihoods and their careers for so many years. This has been their passion. This is something that they care about. And then on the artist side, artists are like, oh, this is like, we need to snuff this thing out. We need to kill this AI thing. This shouldn't even exist. It's like, okay, well, you're not looking at the benefits that it could bring to millions of people in the
yeah.
future. I think,
Or even just production, dude. Like, if you're a
yeah,
director or someone who works with the team, I know it sounds horrible to say like I don't need to hire that many artists anymore. But on the other side though, it's just like it's so expensive, especially if you're not like a big studio or a big
right, yeah,
director where you don't have like millions of dollars of budget. You just want to like I want to make my short film. I don't
yeah,
want to pay I don't have like even like few thousand, let alone few thousand dollars, like few $1,000s. I don't have like 20, 30, $50,000 to pay an artist to make like bunch of backgrounds for my film. That's not gonna even make money because I'm not popular enough.
hmm
So yeah, I don't know. There's so many kind of like
I
layers to
mean,
it.
people are also like saying way into the future, AI is going to start making films and videos and movies for us too. So like, who knows
I
where
think
this one
so. Yeah.
goes?
Well, it depends. That was Steven's argument that he actually goes even further than that and saying it's like it will actually prompt itself to do stuff to kind of
That's
like
that's
please you. And
oh
I can
man.
see where this could go because like you think about TikTok, for instance, right? Like TikTok kind of is kind of incredible in terms of what it does to you because it looks at your behavior without you giving it any text input. It just observes how long you linger or something, how quickly you scroll, what you like, what you don't. I don't know if it's using camera to.
TikTok's fucked though. Yeah, TikTok is fucked because apparently they use a camera to like track your facial expressions, and they
Right.
also they have the mic. So the moment you laugh at something, they're like, "Oh, you find this funny, huh? We'll show you more of this."
Yeah, I'm
So
pretty
it's kind of
sure.
like
I'm pretty sure
that app's kind of
Instagram and
fucked.
Twitter use that too. Like, I am pretty sure there to a certain degree.
Honestly, like honestly, all the apps. Like sometimes I'd be talking about something like a chip that I wanted, and the next thing you know, I see an ad for this chip. I'm like, what the fuck? How do you
Yeah,
know this?
yeah, 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 yeah. But if you take that, then it can create okay based. It can be coded that based on those expressions, this is something you like. Let's find an aggregate of prompts of something you like, and let's create stuff from those prompts. And there you
Mm,
go. It will eventually be complex enough, and I can totally see that where it gets complex enough where it just crafts stuff for you, and
that's
then you're a
crazy. Yeah,
completely mindless creature staring at the phone that is
that's
creating
crazy.
creating entertainment for you, so you get more and more addicted.
It's actually wild. You just be like, oh, I want to watch a movie. What genre? I want to watch a rom-com today, and this AI just 3 hour rom-com for you. You can just stare at the screen for the next 3 hours. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
but think about like if you're let's think about like the most like positive uh, kind of guard gated result in which like let's say you're in a school and the teacher
Yeah.
wants to express a certain, you know, talks about certain example to make the point across.
Mm.
What if they can just say things and then on the screen it literally shows you a cartoon,
Ah,
right, of that
right.
thing, and then the kids watch it and like, oh, I get it now.
That
Oh,
would
that makes
be
total sense.
that would be great for visual learners like me.
Yeah,
That's
or
that's
like,
a positive application.
yeah,
That's a positive
but
application.
then like if it's not gated, then you get like, oh, buy some
Exactly.
crypto.
There's also there's also the question of when AI gets good enough, there's a question of identity theft, forgery, you know,
Oh,
just
yeah,
appropriating someone else's experience or not appropriating someone else's appearance and their or their work, the style of their work, and claiming it, you know, claiming it to be one of theirs, and or claiming an image to be featuring a said person when it actually doesn't, and it becomes like a whole defamatory kind of issue. There's the issue of that
yeah,
too.
it can potentially, especially if it's like unrecognizable, you know? Like
Exactly.
I've seen, I know you mentioned this in your video. I've seen the models that, and like it literally became like, oh, let's just, this guy doesn't like it. Let's just make as many as possible.
Yeah, it's
I think it's niche. Like honestly, but I see how much damage this could create potentially. But that kind of behavior, I don't think you can stop this. It's sort of like it's like fan art, but on steroids in a way.
yeah, but
You know?
at the same time, there will always be bad actors. Like no matter what industry or
Yeah,
sector you're in, there will always
100%.
be bad actors. So you can't stamp that out completely. That's why we have laws and stuff in place. But yeah, I think that was like a fun experience. That was when I was like, oh, man, I don't fuck with this. Stop using my work for this shit. And then they were like, oh, we're gonna do more of these.
You can't.
And then like they went as far as to send my business email an email about this event they were hosting. I'm like, this is the most, this is quite possibly the most immature, the least productive way that we could have gone about this. Like,
Yeah.
and, and like, that's not to say I'm completely clear of any fault whatsoever because I saw it the first time because someone sent it to me. Like, one of my friends showed it to me. I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, this is bullshit. So I went on to the subreddit. I started reading the comments and I saw the original. I was just looking for the original poster of that post, and he was saying how okay, if his attitude was genuine, a little bit better, and a little bit more understanding, I would have been like, okay, you know what, this is not something that's too bad. We can have a conversation about this. But this guy was like, there's no need to ask for permission from the original artist. Went ahead to watermark all the pieces, and is like, I'm contemplating releasing this to the public, and if I do so, I shouldn't have to ask for permission because this work is mine and it's original. I'm like, what is who instilled this mindset in you? Who seriously, like, what kind of bubble did you exist in that made you think that this was something that's morally okay to do? So I'm like, okay, fuck this shit. I posted on a story. I'm like, do you guys see what's happening here? And then like some very questionable, immature individuals in the community. What I should have censored the name. Just bottom line, I should have censored the name. Forgot to do that. Okay, what forgot about the toxicity of the internet for a second, and that was my fault. And some people in the community decided to go and attack that person. It's like, okay, well, on both sides now, we're not helping the situation at all. Neither of us are helping the situation.
Well, to defend you, you fuck around, you find out.
Yeah,
um,
like to be fair, like they fucked around, they found out, and I fucked around, I found out too. So we all
mm.
found out in the end. And I think it was an unpleasant situation, but looking back now that I'm kind of clear of it, I don't know if I'm fully clear. I don't know if they're still building models on my work,
I'm pretty
but
sure they are. Like people are
probably.
gonna do that.
Probably. And you know what's most annoying to me is people are gonna do it and then use that kind of, like the style that I've kind of adopted, and they're gonna use it for like not safe for work shit. That's just like very unclassy, and I'm gonna be like, oh,
You cannot stop
that's
it. The problem is The big problem is what you say about the identity, meaning like forging that that's you're someone else, you know, and then
Yes.
kind of putting this image, because if someone does like malicious work with your style and it's undistinguishable from your work, then
Yeah.
that definitely has an impact
That's a
on like
problem.
if you want to get hired in the industry and whatever, and then someone like creates like neo-Nazi images and like claim that's
Yeah.
you, and like you can fake accounts and shit like that, and just
Yeah.
like what the hell, you know, like this can I can totally see that happening.
Yeah, and then when like someone who might be hiring you in the future just stumbles across it, sees it, and is like, "What the fuck is this person doing?"
Right.
Without even going into like a deep background check or anything on you, they're just
All
like,
the
"What the fuck is
companies
this
do
person doing?"
background checks though, like, you know, they will check your Twitter before they hire you, like
Oh
make
man.
sure, you know. So I totally agree with your perspective on this, and it goes even further, like deep fakes and, you know,
Exactly.
like voice, the voice AI is incredible. Like if
Oh yeah.
they're already like
Yeah.
free software where it's like, oh, I can be Morgan Freeman right now,
I
or
think I've
Donald Trump.
seen filters like on TikTok where people can change their voices. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if it was
real
TikTok or something else.
changing real time,
Real time,
real
exactly, real
time.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was no, people were doing it with like their dogs. Their dogs would be like howling and woofing and stuff, and they would put an anime voice filter over it, and next thing you know, the dog is going like woo woo woo. It's like it's funny at first, but man, just think of all the possibilities with bad applications of this. It's very troublesome.
This needs to be regulated because, and it will be. I think this is the stuff where it's gonna go from like the deep fakes and trickle down to art. Possibly, I really hope that that's where this is gonna go, because you gotta think that in U.S. The next election cycle, if they don't sort it out, it's gonna be a shit show.
Yeah,
Especially by the time the election comes in. And like,
yeah,
are you gonna be able to trust where this info is coming from? You can't even
exactly.
trust what you're reading if it's like written by humans or AI at this point already, you know? And it's the same with art almost. Like, did an artist make that or was it AI?
Yeah, exactly. It's that's starting to set in now, and
Yeah.
it's very, very unsettling. Like I recently hosted a video on my Discord where I asked people to submit their pieces so I can paint over it on YouTube and do like
Hmm.
a cool, like a funny video for that. And there were some instances, like one person was like, "I made this with AI. Take it if you want." And I was like, "No, I'm not taking that." And then another person posted a couple of pieces that looked like eerily similar to the models that were made on the Stable Diffusion
Hmm.
subreddit. And I was like, something's off here. So I look into it and you can see the marks of AI, which is it's good right now. But in a few years' time, man, that's not even gonna be
You're not
possible
gonna be
anymore.
able to tell.
Right?
Yeah.
I
In
went
a
in
few
there,
months, I
I
would say, even not a few
yeah,
years.
yeah, probably not a few years. Yeah, the timeline's way shorter. But I went in there, I was looking at the eyeball, I was looking at the way the lines were made. I was like, yeah, this is not. So we asked the person like if you can provide a process video for this piece from beginning to end, then we'll clear you of this.
And there's them like a
Yeah,
camera on keyboard prompting. Hey, it's
they
a
can
process
totally.
video. Like, what the hell?
So right, so and that moment I saw it, I was like, fuck, like is this what we're gonna be dealing with? Am I just gonna look at every single art piece and be like, was this made with AI or is this human made? And it's like, this it sounds exhausting. It's we're already at a stage where you look at so many things online, you don't know what to trust, you don't know what's real, you don't know what's not, and now this is just gonna turn that up to a whole new level.
Yeah. And it's so crazy. I mean, I know, like, for instance, China is doing something interesting where it's unlawful to post like AI visuals that are not watermarked as AI. And I think that is like specifically made for deepfakes.
Uh,
But it trickles down to art, you know? Technically,
yeah,
art is visuals too,
yeah.
which I feel like this could be an interesting approach. But you don't even know if that's someone can just claim that, you know, well, it's
Exactly.
not an AI.
I
And then
guess
what are you gonna
that
do
part
then?
is unavoidable. That part's unavoidable because there will always be bad actors, but the approach itself, like just having that guideline, I think would help. Just
Yeah.
having some kind of disclaimer to say that this image was generated with AI, or if it doesn't have it, then it wasn't.
Yeah, but what happens, like if you just follow strictly copyright laws, what happens when you just edit the image? Because technically, let's say if you prompt an image, you cannot copyright it. But if you
Right.
change colors in Photoshop, you can. It's
Yeah.
technically now has that human touch in it. You change something that you changed, like you
Yeah.
changed enough, let's
Yeah.
say. Or I was listening to, I think that was a Corridor Crew too, when they were talking about in painting, which could technically be like now you cannot like in painting does can you recreate that too or
Mm.
not, is that derivative of the AI or not, because you're technically
Yeah.
now creatively thinking how to expand the image versus just using prompt to create something, right?
Yeah.
So that becomes a gray area
It's
like so
way
quickly.
too complex. I
Yeah,
have no idea how to even think about that.
yeah,
Even on the issue of derivative versus transformative, like that's, what people talk about AI generated images being derivatives of the original, but in some cases it might change it enough in terms of the context, or maybe it's a parody in terms of the context that it becomes like quote unquote transformative instead of derivative. And in that case, it becomes protected by copyright. And where does that line even fall? Where does it begin and where does it end? So
yeah. Well, interesting thing is obviously that just prompting is not, you cannot copyright that. This is what Copyright Office has said. They
yeah.
established that with a bunch of examples. You can always lie. Not advisable to lie to government officials, by the way. But so so there is that. There's another topic where okay, let's say all the modeling becomes well sourced from Creative Commons and
Mm,
public domain and no copyrighted material.
mm,
Well, Disney's gonna have their own model from all the Disney stuff that they have owned in perpetuity throughout the universe, in all media, in the future and beyond, in multiverse. That's how the contracts are
mm.
structured. And then you're gonna work for Disney and they're gonna give you a contract and say, I'm picking up Disney. Let's say another company. Let's say,
That's
what's the
okay to pick
most
on
evil?
Disney.
No, because I work with Disney too. uh, anyways, any Disney or any other corporation,
Mm,
it could be this. Disney is a good example because they have incredibly large amount of content already, and they work with so many artists. But you can imagine the future if in which you're given a contract to work on a project, and they say specifically, "Hey, you want to work on this? We're gonna train our models on your like we are allowed to train on your work now."
right.
And then why would you hire this artist again, technically speaking?
Boom. Right.
You know what I mean? Because you
Right.
gave consent that they can use whatever you created. And Stable Diffusion, I tried this. Stable Diffusion, you only need like 10 images to create like, there's like different training models. There's like the textural inversion, something called textural inversion,
Mm,
which is like creating a style on top of like other database, or
hmm.
creating like your own sort of, database or like your own model, like training the model based on images. One is slower, more precise. The other one is just kind of like it's almost like it's like those like it's like an Instagram filter, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Where it's kind of
Yeah.
like filtering to make it look like something specific, but it doesn't understand the context of like that's the character, that's this, that. Or you can train it to be specifically aware that that's supposed to be a character, whatever, right? They can take your whatever 10 concept arts or illustrations you made for a movie and then train that every single other art they can sketch out will look like that. Or they can just take all of the art that was created and is copyright by Disney and just train it on that and just spit out images. And technically it doesn't really matter because like the only place where it monetarily would matter would be if they wanted to make an art book out of images. But in filmmaking, concept art is just a little speckle of the whole
Right.
production, you know?
Right.
So if you combine all the AI tools for animation, for textures, for visual effects, for deep fakes, acting, voice acting, all that stuff, you still have to coordinate it, and that's already transformative and can be copywritten. You know,
Hmm.
it's gonna be crazy. I cannot
Man,
even make prediction where this is and how fast it's gonna go.
I mean, what do you think just based on a hunch, where do you think the concept art industry will be in the next few years?
I don't know. I want to see more lawsuits to kind of
Yeah,
define what that is. You know,
right,
it's a bummer that crypto industry did not have those lawsuits like right away, and
right,
NFTs.
right.
It makes me really sad because I remember diving into NFTs. I think it was last it was 2 years ago almost now. Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah, it was early 2021. Yeah, almost 2 years. Yeah, 2 years ago. Holy crap, the time is flying.
Yep.
And I remember, like, oh wow, like digital artists now have this tool for like the digital receipt of authenticity, you know,
Mm, yeah,
which you didn't have before, and now all of a sudden becomes valuable. And lo and behold, who would have guessed? No regulations. Let's just fucking YOLO this whole thing, and it
yeah, man.
became like the reputation of that. Just it's an incredible technology with ruined reputation.
Yeah,
You know what
it
I
was
mean?
just scam story after scam story after scam story, and
It's
people were getting away
crazy.
with it. People were getting away with it with no
Well, not
consequences because there
anymore.
was no
Well, the
regulation.
problem is SEC is not big enough to like go after everything, but at
Yeah,
least there is examples that where they are trying to kind of like do something. But the problem is like even with even with like government agencies, like they don't even know what the hell that is. They don't even know how to go about it, and it's just like, and
yeah,
then the lawyers get involved, and it's just like it's all a big stalemate and fucking it's wild. And they didn't touch it for like for such a long time.
yeah.
And
Do you think NFTs will make a comeback soon?
I really hope they do.
Yeah.
Well, I think it depends. It depends what this comeback is going to be because if it's going to be a bull run because crypto is on the green and the candles are green and going up and to the moon, then it's just like
That's-
what is it for? It's all speculative, you know? But the thing about crypto that to me it was always about, and it still is, and it's part of like why I'm like so excited about, you know, the Shibuya and all that, all the projects we're doing is that you have a digital footprint that you cannot
Mhm.
change. Like you cannot change if someone finds out how to hack blockchain, it's over. The blockchain, the whole blockchain technology is in the dust,
Mm.
right? But you cannot change things because it's like the block, like it's blockchain, right? It's like a block,
Yeah.
a line, a block, a line. If you want to change something that was here, you have to undo all the blocks
Hmm.
and all the calculations that has been done before to even change that. So you cannot just like retroactively go and like inject something. It just doesn't
Hmm.
work that way. It's like whatever is written, there's a next block. In order to go back, you need to revert everything that was done after. So the longer it exists, the less likely you can actually change or do anything about it. You know, there are things like arbitrage to like, oh, there was an error, let's fix that, and it's posted on the next block or something. But you cannot change the blockchain. So that's the part where it's like, okay, well, in that case, let's say I'm an artist, I mint my work on the blockchain, I have a digital receipt that I made it. This is the original work, you know, and let's say in the utopian world, it goes to a place where it's like almost like the Spotify model, where you know, in order you can allow models to train on your work, but you want royalties. And the best way to track royalties, like you already know where you know where the work came from. It's already on the
Yeah.
blockchain, and you can use it as if because it's an NFT. It's a smart contract that says, okay, anytime let's say this is sourced or whatever, it has, or anytime there's a monetary gain, a certain amount of percentage goes to the wallet of the creator. You know, that's
Hmm.
how NFTs work. Like anytime
Yeah.
NFTs are on the resale, 10% of that resale goes to artists.
Yeah.
So amazing passive source of income. If you're like
Yep.
working really hard, you know, the problem is like you had 10,000 monkeys times 10,000 projects, right? Like just so many of them, and just like, well, what the fuck? um,
Oh man.
but my point was that because there was no regulations around this, there was no lawsuits, there was just no kind of like, let's just YOLO the whole thing.
Yeah.
You see what happened, and now if 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 AI will go the same direction where there's just no regulations attention to this, this is gonna be what crypto was, but like millionfold in terms
Yeah,
of
I
like
agree.
how impactful it will be for a society,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Because we're not talking about just like, oh, like you fell into a scam because like the smart contract was this or that, or maybe there was a con artist that created like a bank and then you lost all your money, you know?
Yeah.
Or you bought the wrong monkey and that
This
monkey was
changes,
worthless, you know?
man, this yeah, the AI would change entire industries and people's lives and careers.
And we're talking about art. It's I gave this example many times, like a few times already, but artists talking about AI art is like ants freaking out that a human stepped into their like their home, and meanwhile there's a dinosaur ending comet that is about to hit the earth, and it has a giant craters that are saying chat gpt. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness.
That's
I,
how it
I've
feels though.
been I've been watching some videos and listening to some podcasts about ChatGPT, and that thing is scary.
It's
It's
crazy.
scary. I mean, now there's people submitting university papers and tests at school using ChatGPT.
It's being banned in schools,
Yeah.
district by district. Like every day you hear, okay, like New York was the first one that banned using ChatGPT.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad for that because with ChatGPT, you know, it's such almost everybody's heard of it, everyone knows about it, and it's kind of bringing AI into people's attention.
Yeah,
So by association, AI art is also tagged along with that, and I think the more people who hear about it, the more people know about it, and when we get regulations for ChatGPT, hopefully, you know, some of that trickles down to things like Stable Diffusion and art and copyright.
it's gonna be interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, with ChatGPT specifically, the interesting news was like obviously it's getting banned on the in the universities
Mhm.
because like, well, that's cheating. Um, but also it just uh they did like not the full test for like the medical. I kind of exactly. I don't remember what's like the medical exams for you to be a doctor basically are, but it passed like those exams as B minus and like one of the most prestigious, you know,
That's
testing,
fucked.
you know, that was one, and then it passed some elements of the bar for like the, you know, for you to be a
That's
lawyer, right?
fucked.
It's like whoa.
That's
Not everything, but then would you want AI to be your lawyer, you know, or be a
right,
prosecutor? Like that's
right.
imagine two AIs, like one is a lawyer,
Oh
and
my
one is defendant, and one's the
goodness.
prosecutor. It's like, and it's just like blink and eye. Okay, it's resolved. I was like, what? When? Oh, they went through like 100 proceedings in 10 seconds. You know.
That would save us a lot of time.
Well, but then what happens to jury duty? You know,
hmm
right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
that's the thing in the U.S. I don't know if that's the thing in
if
Canada. It's not a thing in the Europe but in the U.S. you have jury that makes the
yeah, it is a
decision.
thing here too. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, honestly, if the tech is just allowed to progress just wildly with no regulations, man, we can't even begin to imagine what society is going to look like for us in the next 20, 30 years, 50 years down the line. We don't even know what it's going to look like. What do we do? Like, what's the purpose of being a human anymore?
yeah. Well, that's interesting, right? I mean, Steven mentioned this again on the podcast he was on with me that he saw like immediately saw a significant drop in like students just like, oh my god, this AI art, like why do I learn AI, like why do I learn art anymore, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
And
I've
I
noticed
can
that too.
relate to that. It's
Yeah.
like if I was an artist now learning, it's like why would I learn art?
Yeah,
What's the
I've
point?
noticed that too. I get people in my comment sections, I get people messaging on Discord, people saying that there's like this sense of hopelessness that this thing is here and it's going to do everything that you can do better than you, and it's just going to keep getting better at a faster pace than you ever can dream of. So learning the skill, what's it really going to do for you when you come out of school in 3 years time and you don't have a job? And
Yeah,
people, a lot of people are feeling that way.
yeah, I can totally relate to that. Yeah, because it's like very, it's one thing to say like what's current, because even if with the current, it's like it's kind of discouraging. But like, look, if you learn, you know, like colors and composition, all those things, you're already gonna be better off than anyone else who doesn't, you know?
Hmm.
Because now you're gonna be equipped with the knowledge of like what are the what's your taste, you know,
Hmm.
what the authentic taste is like. Because otherwise, it's just gonna be like the mildew of an averageness, which most of everything is basically.
Hmm.
But what if in 5 years it's completely different? And or like, what if in a year it's completely different, which is completely possible? Like, if anything,
Yeah.
we already have a historical proof that things change month, like day by day at this point, like daily. There's something
I
new.
yeah, it's so fast. It's progressing so
It's too
fast. And
fast.
and just from literally just from when you first contacted me and then when today, like just between this time, like so many things have come out, right?
Yeah.
Getty Images is suing, and then there's that lawsuit by Carla and everyone down in the States, and we're still waiting on that. Like by the time this video comes out, I'm sure we'll still be waiting on the answers to that. And
Oh,
then
that stuff's gonna go for months.
yeah, and then like who knows, one day, like few 5, 6 months later, this is all gonna be outdated. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll be obsolete in that
By the
time.
time they get to the to do the like the first hearing in the court, the technology is gonna be already different.
Yeah, yeah. What a wild times we're living in,
It's
man.
super wild, man. Like, wow. Like who would have thought? And
It's surreal. It's surreal. Like to if you told me 10 years ago that AI would be taking over the jobs of artists, AI would be writing papers, AI would be passing tests, I'd be like, what? That's a sci-fi movie. This
yeah.
is literally a sci-fi plot. And we're living in that right now. That's crazy.
Yeah, it feels like being in a sci-fi movie for sure. Yeah, where do you think this is all going? Like if you have to put your, wizard's hat and predict the future,
Well,
what do
I'm
you
gonna make an optimistic prediction. I'm gonna hope like this is my most realistic scenario is that there will be regulations, but with the rate it's progressed and the way it's progressing right now, I don't think it's going to change too much of the trajectory of this
Mhm.
technology. So it's going to be here to stay, and all the things that people are talking about, how it's going to start generating content without the need for human intervention, I think that's going to be here, and that's going to be part of the future, and we are going to have to learn to live with that somehow. And I think potentially, if you're an artist in the future and you're hand making art, you're human making art. Um, that's so weird to say, but
Until robots are indistinguishable and then they are equipped
yeah,
with the stable
okay, then it's
diffusion.
fucked. Then it's fucked. But in the
Hey, have you
future, if
seen
you're
the latest Boston Dynamics? I mean, come on, man. That thing's fucking doing
man,
backflips and putting bridges and like doing, you
okay,
know,
if you're combining that shit with AI inside of it, then I guess there's no point being human anymore. Let's all just I'm done, man. Like
yeah.
but yeah, I think like
And you can't
there
even like go and punch it because it's just like when it punches you back,
no,
you're
that thing
dead.
will destroy you. It's like the Terminator. Man, Stable Diffusion is like Skynet, or Chat GPT is like Skynet, and these Boston Dynamics, they're producing the Terminators. That's how it's gonna go. Um, but yeah, I think we'll have to coexist somehow. But I do believe that uh, in the future, if there is a space for both AI and human artists, the value of human-made art could be going up once again. Like, I
Mhm.
think there was a bit of a devaluing of human-made art when digital art came around, because it's like now you can right click and just save, right click and save, and everything's just there. and you can get the full resolution images for like free, basically, and anybody can have it. And then there was a push for that with NFTs, like it was giving art,
It was a
value
promise,
again.
yeah.
Yeah, it was really giving that kind of authenticity, that sense of value that you would have with a physical piece made by an artist, one of a kind kind of thing. And I think a lot of that was devalued with digital art. But I think going forward, even in the digital medium, like if NFTs were to make a comeback and actually work properly instead of, a lot of people using it to scam, um, then maybe there is an avenue for digital artists in the future, like human artists, to create work that is valued at a much, much higher level. And AI could be like a source of cheap, like almost like junk food, like a cheap source of mass entertainment. And that's used more of like a means to an end than an avenue for creation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's like my most realistic take on that future.
Yeah, to your point about NFTs comeback, I wonder if it's just going to be called NFTs or something else. But the whole market had basically its own .com burst. But you
Right.
know what happened after? We got internet, we got, well, we already had internet, but we got Uber, Amazon, like
Yeah,
all those big companies
exactly.
and amazing products out of it, right?
Exactly.
This is what's going to happen to Web3 in general. It's already happening to Web3 in general. Like there are startups that are creating incredible things already.
Mhm.
There's regulations coming in from the government. Obviously, like way too late, but better late than never.
For sure.
Um, so that's very encouraging to see. I mean, the only thing that could potentially completely disrupt it is AI. Like, but now here we are, right? Um,
Man, it's just disruptive technology after disruptive technology.
and it feels like I I feel like 2023 is gonna be like compressing last 3 years into one.
It is. It's going to be a crazy year. I know for a fact it's going to be a crazy
Yeah,
year. What is your take? Like, what's your take on where this is all going?
I will tell you, but then I want to ask you one more thing about this. So in my opinion, like, well, I want to see more lawsuits. I really want this to be regulated in a way where, and I'm not even talking about AI, like art itself. It's near and dear to me. Like I'm an artist. Like it's my identity. I love
Hmm.
creating. So obviously I feel very strongly emotionally about it. But I'm in a position where I really embrace it. Like whether it's gonna be like even with look NFTs and Web3, you could have the same doom and gloom kind of outlook on that and like oh it's all scam and just like never do it or be like on that scam part, be the scam artist. What comes around, right? Like it'll eventually get back to you. If you're like a piece of shit, like I do believe in karma. You'll eventually get your end of a stick.
Yeah.
Um, there's many examples of art. Like there's so many amazing artists that dove into Web3 and NFTs, and they've made incredible things. Like
Mhm.
I'll give you a personal example because that's something I can relate to. Last year, or like little over a year ago, I made this NFT that has a coded that whoever owns it, and the guy who actually bought it is Daniel Taylor, who's an amazing artist too. Whoever owns it, based on the geolocation, it changes over time. So it's a different it's on a different kind of animation during the day, different animation at night, and then on this like a physical sunset and sunrise based on your location, like the altitude, it plays a minute of a completely different animation, right? And the idea is that like you can only see that animation when it's a sunrise or a sunset,
Mhm.
and it just plays for a minute and it just goes back to like either like the night state or date state. You you could technically do that on the web page, technically, but it doesn't have the same like it's not you have to kind of like go back and then it can get destroyed. It can be deleted and whatever, right? This thing is on the blockchain. It's gonna be there forever. I don't have to worry about the files unless like all computers go away or all the whole blockchain goes away. Obviously, that can happen. Um, but even if there's only one computer connected to Ethereum network, that piece is gonna be there.
Mm,
because it's just distributed over, the blockchain.
like a
So,
cool
and
collectible.
yeah, and a person who has it is like, I do own that piece. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, you can take all four of those animations, right click and save, and then make your website with a code and code it in a way that it's going to do the same thing, but it's not going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
So things like that, or like the utility, the provenance, the history, one of the things, like why, like with Shibuya, for instance, what we're talking about a lot is like the fandom, like the way in which you have a traceable proof of who is the fan of the show, and you can reward them without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on like marketing research, because you already know who your fans are. They either have the token or NFT, right?
Right.
And you know their behaviors. They can vote. They can make things more interactive. That kind of stuff. That's where I feel like this is great. And also like the whole Web3, where it's like you're not making accounts on Twitter or Instagram or Reddit or Discord. You have your wallet, which is your account, and you just connect to those services and then allow those services to have certain access to the wallet, right? So you can have like more history data, and that is, you own that stuff. It's not like
Right.
it doesn't belong to Instagram, it doesn't belong to Twitter, it belongs to you, and you can
Right.
you can say,
Right.
okay, I only allow you to see my username, and that's it. That kind of stuff. So it's very interesting because it's a completely different approach to how the web traffic would be created, like, and how people communicate over the web. But where it goes to I feel like it just needs that kind of like, um, it needs to be structured where I think the technology is amazing. I I play with it. I see a use of it. I I much more, not even much more. I don't really enjoy taking like existing models. It's fun to try existing models. Like, oh, I can create like Ghibli art. That's
Mm.
cool. But it's like that novelty fades away really quickly. Like really quickly. Um, to me, much more interesting is like what your AI fans are doing with you. training on your work. Imagine if you could train a bunch of stable diffusion models on your own work, and now you have your own army of artists that create your work for you.
That's yeah, that's one of the use cases that I thought about would be
And that's
extremely
what you said in
beneficial.
the beginning,
Yeah,
like imagine
exactly.
if I wanted to make an art book and this could make it so much easier for me, right?
Exactly. Just put in a bunch of my work, like whether it be portraits or environments or just things that I value, things that
Yeah.
I really like in my work, and just have it be click a button and have it generate a bunch of ideas based on that. And it's like, it really is like you're the director now and you have an army of you that's
Yeah.
just working under you. And that would be insane. That would make life so much easier. That would make so many things be able to come true. That would save on production, save on time. That's just, I can see that being a benefit. And I can see why people are pushing for that. And I think that's
Yeah.
something that I want to. So that's something I want in the future.
Yeah, I mean, like just for illustrations, good example would be like, I want to make a series of illustrations of the same character, but oh my God, the idea
Yeah.
of like drawing the same character from different angles for months
Yeah.
and months, it's like, oh, fucking kill me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. By the end, you're like, I'm sick of this character, man. I never want to see this character again.
Yeah, and if you could just like, oh, like, let me create those pieces, and then I can like creatively kind of like DJ them, like, and
Hmm.
massage and do those things. That's where I feel like that's the most important, interesting part. And you can already do that. You can
Mm.
already do it with the tools that exist. You can be. I feel like if you use the tools correctly, there's no moral dilemma. The moral dilemma is where, let me take a screenshot of work in progress and finish it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel sorry for artists that take commissions though. Like that is gone. Unless
I
someone
know.
like really wants to have that personal artist touch. That's in
Yeah,
this
I know.
that industry is gone.
And it's a
Like
big
now.
industry too. It's like we don't hear about that. We maybe don't hear about that as much here, but there's so much of that overseas in different countries where they don't have as robust of an art industry that they could work in. So they take commissions, they take USD payments from people who
Yeah.
are better off than them, and they actually are able to make a really good living.
Well, milk those suckers who don't know
Yeah,
AI art and just do it more
yeah. I
quickly
mean,
now.
I don't know. It's a very bleak future for commission only artists, and I don't know where they're gonna go. Like,
It definitely is. That I don't know what to say on that
yeah,
realm. It just went away overnight,
it's
literally.
tough, man. That's
Yeah.
tough. Yeah,
But, you know, to give it a positive spin, like at the end of the day, you as a commissioned artist, you do have artist skills.
mm,
It's just a matter of figuring out, okay, what to do with what else can I do with them? You
right.
know?
What's the next step you can take now that this thing has created a giant hurdle in your way? It's
Yeah.
like meteor just smashed into your planet. Now what do you do?
It's not helpful to just curl and cry.
Yeah,
They're not gonna get anywhere. Like nothing's gonna change. The world doesn't give a fuck.
yeah. No,
It just
that's
moves
very
on.
true. That's
Yeah.
very true. You got to kind of deal with the situation and the circumstances that you're given. This is like a piece of advice that a lot of people who are successful they will tell you. Like you just got to make the most of the circumstances that you're in, no matter what circumstances you're in.
Yeah.
Instead of like feeling sorry for yourself and asking why is it this way, just make the most of what you're given.
Yeah. You can ask why just to find the answer, to have more info. But if you're just asking why just to feel sorry for yourself,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
That's what
I
I
know
meant.
it's a difficult thing to say because like we're emotional creatures and not everyone is like has the level of like grit to then like, okay, I need to do something about it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's tough. Like I think a lot of people kind of put like emotional the value of emotional reaction over like logical analysis of the situation that you're in and kind of just moving forward. Like I have trouble with that all the time. Sometimes I'm like I'm more emotional than
Everyone
I
does,
am
yeah.
logically thinking. Right? Everyone goes through that, but um, bottom line, you got to make the most of any situation that you're in. It might not
Yeah.
be great, right? Or it might be great. Like some people might be in a way better situation than you are. Instead of feeling sorry for yourself and asking why is it this way, make the most of your situation that you're given. Like put in more work than that person has, and you'll be able to do what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, everyone gets that. Everyone gets to that place. Even like the most
Yeah,
successful, the difference between like the most successful, like super hardcore, super achievers is that they feel sorry for themselves, but at the same time, like I'm not gonna be a bitch. I'm just gonna like
yeah,
keep plowing forward. They just
yeah.
have that kind of like brush it off. Still feel like this
Oh my goodness.
pounding of heart and
Yeah,
like sweatiness of like just feeling super exhausted by being stressed all the time, but at the same time that they're just not allowing themselves to shut down completely. They still, okay, if I want to get out of from this situation, like I have to like grind and that's it. Like I
yeah,
just have to do
yeah.
something. And I find myself in that like, oh my god, so many times. There's so many projects where I'm like, I just want to quit,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
even with AI, it's like, dude, like even on the highest level, I know I'll be fine. Or at least I trust in myself that I'll be fine
mm,
because I keep repeating to myself that, hey, like you can learn new things, like you can always adapt. I think what helps is that I was a fucking janitor earning like below minimum wage for most of my life.
that
So
helps
I've
so
been poor
much.
as shit.
That helps so much. Yeah, for me too. Like I came to Canada when I was like 10 years old, so I knew what it
Hmm.
was like to have basically nothing.
Yeah.
In back in China, like basically nothing. Like I would look at toy catalogs from the U.S. and be like, "What the fuck? This is 15 US dollars. This is like
Yeah.
translated to Chinese money. This is like 100 something. There's no way we could ever afford this. How the fuck do people afford this? Just shit like that. Having that experience, having been in a place where you're kind of like in the dirt, and then you kind of get out of it. You're like, yeah, no way. There's no way you're going back to that. It gives you a sense of drive. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like, you
exactly.
kind of come from a situation like that, and it's not a great situation. That's not the best place that you want to be. It's like you start a game or something, and you get placed on an area of the map that's just like surrounded by danger, and you're like, oh fuck, like what do I do now? Instead of just curling up and like accepting that you're gonna die, just make something of it.
Yeah,
I think,
exactly.
yeah,
No, yeah, that you you said it correctly. Like you hit the nail like with that the drive part where it's like fuck, like I don't want to be at that spot anymore ever.
exactly. It's
So
so
I just gotta
hard to
fucking
go
work hard.
back.
Yeah.
Exactly. Once you've known what it's like to not have to feel that kind of sense of not being able to have anything that you want, not being able to have,
Yeah.
uh, not being able to have just basic comfort, not being able to feel like warm in your own home, like stuff like that. Once you have that experience, you're just like, and you've gotten out of it, you've known what it's like to not have to deal with that. There's no way you would go back to it.
Yeah. But and then on the other hand too, it's like, well, if I had to, I know I can survive though.
Yeah.
Done it before.
It's like a baseline level of like,
Yeah.
I'll be okay. I've been
I'll
there
be
before.
okay. I've been there before.
Yeah.
It gets a little more complex once you have kids and family, and then it's like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Additional fire under your ass for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask this last question then. Are you intending to like actually like what do you think you're gonna do with AI? Like you specifically, because like we kind of established that it's not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like obviously it's gonna be more or less regulated. It's gonna like there's gonna be specific parameters to work with. There are specific parameters now. Where do you see that in you specific, or you don't care? Like I'm just gonna be authentic, who I am, and just gonna like focus on my art and make that to be the part of my identity. I'm just curious, like where your mindset is at with that.
Well, currently, like, well, I'm the same as you. I'm waiting for these lawsuits to happen and for the regulations to take place. I just want to see where the space is in 2023. But maybe
Hmm.
by the end of this year, let's just see where all the laws are. What's the opinion on how to regulate this technology and how it takes shape over this year. But I'm not entirely closed off to AI. I'm not like in that bubble. I'm not like, oh, I'm this camp and I'm gonna die an artist. I'm not gonna subjugate myself to a bubble like that. I'm open to the technology. I think ideally, if we could get regulations in place and this could be actually like genuinely a tool made for everyone and is intended to help people, like ideally, I would I would be happy to do stuff on AI that I wouldn't have time to do otherwise. Like maybe give it some of my pieces and use it to generate maybe backgrounds for a book or something for a story that I want to tell. But
You can
just
do it
simply,
now, technically speaking.
yeah,
Yeah, you can already do it, and it's per, I mean, if you train your own models, then what's unethical about it? It's
yeah,
I don't see a
yeah.
problem
Mm,
specifically.
I think I just want to.
There are
For me, like I just
dimensional
want
there
to.
sorry, there are dimensional restrictions though. So like all of the images that like the generators create, they're really small. Like usually it's like
Oh, I see.
512 by 512 or 768 by 7. Like you can define
Oh,
the
that's
parameters,
tiny.
but they're
Right.
pretty small. If you want to make like a 2K image, man, that's you better have like fast computer. Like I have
Mm,
three 3090s, GTX 3090s,
that's
three of
crazy.
them, and I cannot make 2K images in AI.
That's crazy.
But you can make a 1K image in upscale,
Well, I mean,
technically.
like that'll probably get better this year.
Or,
They'll probably improve on that.
that's something I've already been doing is training my own models on my own art.
Right.
And okay, let's say if I want to create a painting that has a very
Yeah.
specific thing that would take me time, you know, you could technically prompt those things and use it as it's almost like
Hmm.
photo bashing pieces of AI into your own work.
Yeah, no, I find that very interesting. So, like, Yeah, for me, I think that would be the way that I would use it. I would use my own art, make models that kind of could make pieces in my style. But also for me, like since I've kind of talked about this issue so extensively, like in the community, I've talked to people about it, I've made my mindset on it known. If I were to use it ever, I would always fully disclose that there was AI used in the process. And I think,
Yeah.
and I think, to be honest, I don't think I would post that work on like my account. Like if I were to do it, I would explore it on a different account so that people who actually want to see
Hmm.
um, art made with technology, people who want to see that can choose to follow that account. And I won't try to, subjugate people who might not agree with the technology and making art with it. I won't try to subjugate people to that on my main account or anything else. But
That makes
I think
sense.
the important thing is just making it clear, like that, hey, this was made with AI, or like what percentage was of this was made with AI, or even an idea that you have. If this idea was originally created from AI, just make it clear, let people know, and let people who want to follow that. And I think that's best case scenario.
You remember the most annoying question people would have, what brush did you use? Now it's like, what's the prompt?
Yeah.
What's the prompt?
Oh my God.
I had someone comment on my work recently. What's the prompt?
What's
And
the
then
prompt?
and the other guy was like, "Oh, you did him dirty." It's funny. No, I
I
I
get
agree
people.
though. Yeah, like
Yeah.
disclosing your like specifically with AI right now, I think there's going to be a point in time in which it's going to be so mainstream that we just won't care anymore. Like it's
Yeah.
not going to
Yeah.
matter. It's going to be like, oh, it's like, are you going to disclose you used Photoshop for every single piece you've done? Like, I mean, it's kind of established already, right? But yeah, I think like the ethical approach of, I totally agree with you. I'm very bullish in terms of where this could go. Very
Mhm.
scared where this could go, but I feel like you cannot sit on your hands and just like
Yeah.
hope for the best.
That's all of us, man. I mean, we're all feeling like there's two extremes. Like one end where you're very optimistic about the potential for this technology, and then another end where you're just like absolutely terrified of
Yeah.
the way it could go wrong. But there's both. There's definitely both. And the people who just sit exclusively in one camp, who are like fuck all the artists and fuck how you feel. Yeah, like these people have no, they have no real voice to add to the conversation, as well as the artists. Okay, I also want to talk to the artists, because people who eventually end up watching this video are probably going to be mostly artists. The artists who are like exclusively in the camp of uh, art has to be made by humans and AI needs to die. Like you need to open up your perception of the world. You need to step out of your bubble a little bit and try to educate yourself
Yeah.
on just how things progress, and how this could actually benefit you in the future. But at the same time, keep in mind what made you feel that way in the first place so that you can ask the right questions and demand the right regulations. I think that's the most productive way to go.
Totally agree. I think it's a good moment to actually wrap it up here.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
On
do it.
that note, uh, yeah, we've been at it for like almost 2.5 hours too. Time is
Doesn't feel like
flying.
that long.
It felt like a minute. Yeah,
Yeah, that was a great conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to, sit down with me and chat about this. I'm
absolutely.
hoping this will be enlightening to like other people too, just so we can put a voice out there that's not extreme. That's like
I want to do a
pros and
follow
cons.
up with you like 6 months from now.
Let's do it.
Like or
Let's do
something
it.
like that. It would be really interesting to see how everything progresses. Or maybe if it doesn't progress so far, maybe a year from now. But like it would be pretty cool. Like go back to
Let's
that
do a
discussion.
Yeah. Let's do a follow up when we get some answers from regulators and
Yeah.
get some laws in place, and let's see where it goes in the future, and we'll circle around and talk about it again.
Is there any book you're working on you want to plug? I'm joking.
No,
Where people can
not
find you, let's
yet.
say, because I know most people already
Not
know who
yet.
you are, and but there's
Uh,
always a lost soul out there.
yeah. Best way people are gonna find me is just go on Instagram, look up Sam Does Arts, SAMDOES with an S at the end.
I'll link
I
I'll
had to
link
pick.
that below.
I had to pick that name because even though it was grammatically incorrect, Sam Does Art was taken by someone when I first started my account.
it's like if you go in a video game that's popular and you like will make a username, it's already taken.
Yeah, it's it's a pain, man.
It's funny. Cool. All right.
All right.
Thanks everybody. Thanks Sam for spending time with me here, and yeah, till the next
Awesome.
one.
Thank you. It was nice being here.